What's the big idea?
Okay, we are here. We are live. Not live. We're recording this on
For good reason we're not.
on the computer, and we are here today. Welcome to another edition of VOLLEYBALLOGY. My name is Zuby.
My name is Erik.
And I'm Meach.
No, you're supposed to
This
say.
intro is going to kill
You're
me
supposed
every
to
time.
say, "My name is Meach."
I did. Say it quickly.
Except your name is Meach, not my name is Meach. No, you didn't say my name is Meach. You said
My name is Meach.
what?
My name is Meach.
It's getting shorter. It's getting shorter.
Edit.
We can always
Time.
replay it to see.
Edit. Anyway, welcome to a show that we like to call the Tryout Show, because this show is for parents, it's for players, and it's for coaches, all in one, because we're all about unity. All
Together.
I like how you both unity, delicious unity.
Makes it sound so
I'm
much
going to
better.
get some more coffee.
What?
Kidding.
Anyway, we're going to talk today about how basically a player can really thrive in tryouts, how a coach can put together a kick-ass tryout, and how a parent can what a parent can notice about tryouts or help prepare their child for tryouts.
Very important.
Right. Anything else to say there, Meach? I thought the camera's on you now, so you can.
Okay. Okay.
Amichi's back with his sexy voice, of course.
Hey,
Yeah, so do you want me to kick things off then, and then we can just sort of comment from there?
Sounds good to me.
yeah.
Okay. So I think that we could start with maybe to keep.
Now,
this-
hold on. I don't agree.
I just want to.
So easy to throw off.
we just want to wish Amici farewell. This is his last episode, so as you can tell, he's just hanging on by a thread. No, today, come on, people are waiting for this this gold.
Eagerly.
Yeah,
Not that anyone's watching.
not.
but
Yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting. I'll be waiting to see what I say.
Okay.
So parents, I think the best thing we could start with maybe is to help parents get players ready for tryouts. Would you say? So I made a list of things, and I don't know why the camera was stuck on Meach for so long there, but that's good. I made a list of things
Ladies, we
that
know
we can.
why.
We can. I think we're taking too long to get to this, and people are going to be very frustrated with us.
Probably.
Yeah, they're going to be like, fast forward past the stupidity. It's all stupidity, so good luck. No, today, parents, something that you can, I think, help your kids get ready for. I'll say it, and then you guys can elaborate. How about that?
Sounds
And then I'll clean up your crap,
all right.
as usual.
Easily.
So I think athletes the day before, I think athletes don't spend enough time during. It's a good time, first of all, because this time of year we're in the middle of tryouts. A lot of players are going through it for club, rep. Some school tryouts are happening now. Some will happen later, but depends on where you are and where you're living. But I think one thing that parents can help athletes focus with is the day before tryouts. Not enough time is spent. A lot of kids just sort of come home from school, get their stuff ready, and go to tryout. When really, if it's a team they really care about or a spot they really want to claim, they need to get prepared the day before. Thoughts?
Especially when it's ahead of time, like it's their first tryout. So that could be something.
Yeah, that's not what I mean at all. What I mean,
Oh, you go ahead.
even if it's the first, even if it's the second tryout, the third tryout, the day before that day that you need to perform, you got to be prepped.
Right.
Erik, you've been quiet, Erik.
I'm just waiting. Like anything.
Is everything
the
okay?
prep-
Is everything okay, Erik?
Preparation starts before. Like, you always hear that when you're a kid in high school, coming up to an exam. Oh, it's all about the night before. It's all about getting good sleep. It's all about I don't know, being caught up on all your other stuff, all your other homework, and
Yeah.
having
How would you prep?
eating as much pizza as possible the night before. I highly recommend it.
How would you prep the night before as an athlete before a big game or tournament? Because the same, basically, right? You got to perform high level.
Just sleep really well. Try to sleep well. But the funny thing about sleep is when you're so excited about something, is often your brain I guess your brain is just so active. It's like kind of can screw up your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You end up thinking about it or dreaming about it. That happens to me for sure. Certain games, job interviews and stuff, get too rattled. Or like if a certain job I have the next day, I don't know what recommendation to give with that. I think you just get better at it as you get older, I think. But I think certainly some people are better at it than others.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of those qualities of that great players do have, but also the longer you are something like a professional player, you're just going to get better at it because at that point it's your job, right? So yeah,
the moments are less special because you're used to big moments.
And maybe that's a benefit to going to a lot of tryouts, or as many as you can, because they're all quite high pressure. You're going to be excited for all of them. You're going to look forward to being on possibly all of those teams. Therefore, the first one you'll be fairly nervous about. The second one you'll be better, and the third, it'll be just feel like another tryout, right? But sleep's probably the big one. There's other things, of course, like eat decently, and then if you're we're talking like high school and club age, like try to be caught up on whatever, but so you're not freaking out about it.
Yeah, Meach?
For sure. Again, it's the prep and what you do before, but
how did you prep? How did you prep before big tournaments?
I couldn't. I was just too excited all the time. Mm-hmm. If it was a tryout, if it was something that I was really gangbusters for, I was up early and I was up late and I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, so it's hard.
That's how it went for me.
Mm-hmm. What about food?
Food, just as a recommendation, carb load the day before.
Yep.
If you know you're going to be like expending a whole lot of energy, carb load. Just make it, pasta, spaghetti, whatever it might be.
I think pasta is a type of spaghetti. Spaghetti is a type of pasta now. They changed that this year.
Sorry. I was thinking lasagna.
Lasagna is also a type of pasta, actually. I don't know. Lasagna is also...
tortellini?
What else?
Linguine?
Meach is our nutritionist at the show. So,
hey,
Erik, tell him about what pastas are.
Hey, if you're like Meach is saying, he was just super excited about it. That's kind of like it's a way to be prepared in a way, right? Because you're super hyped up about it. So when you get there, you're going to be.
Yep.
Now the thing is, don't be too freaking excited. That's kind of what I was saying. Like you're not going to sleep or whatever, and then.
So everybody listen at home. Don't be too excited.
Don't be too excited.
Don't be too excited.
But being excited is also good. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. It's hard to control excitement by just saying don't be too excited. That's the joke.
Probably even at least get up early the night before.
Get up early the night before.
Sorry, the morning before. You can do it the night before, right?
Meach is 0 for 2.
Get up.
This really could be Meach's last episode. Get up early the night before and eat some pastas like spaghetti, or better yet, lasagna. Non-pastas like ravioli. Sorry, Meach.
That's pasta.
Get up early. Sorry, I'll let you clean that up. Go ahead. I'm not editing it. I'm not editing any of this.
I know what you meant too. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, you guys understood each other. So what did you mean, Meach? Get up
early. The balance of being used to be able to do it. Like if you leave it right to the night before, you're toast.
Okay.
But so get up early that day.
The day before.
You can rest.
Gotcha.
You can get to bed with enough time to get.
That's a big one. Yeah, especially for teenagers, right? Because a lot of the kids have phones in their rooms, and that's a tricky one. parents, as a teacher, I highly recommend that you don't put your kids' phones in their rooms overnight. I think they'll stay up till 4 a.m, right, getting messages and stuff. So we always use alarm clocks, but if kids can wake up early the day before, that's a huge one because it gets you on track for an early morning, especially if you have an early morning game, or in this case, tryouts are usually after school or in the evening, but still, same thing.
Yeah.
You want to be on track. You want to peak at the right time of day.
Are there a lot of practices early morning still?
No, not as much. Now everything's like evenings for club and rep, and then high school. Not as many morning practices as we used to have. I'm sure every school is different, and there probably are some schools that are seriously doing that, like we used to back in. Yeah, but for tryouts, it's usually for that day, big nervous day. Then usually tryouts are in the evening, unless you never know. But the bottom line, I think you're right. Get the sleep, prepare. I always say hydration too. I think kids don't hydrate. Kids today don't hydrate. They drink or they drink just a bunch of water, and they don't understand things about like slower hydration, things like melon and like water rich foods like cucumber that can actually really deeply hydrate you better than just water, which might pass through your system. So stuff like that, drink, if you're going to drink water, a lot of water, then you do it with, eat with a lot of different foods that'll help soak up that water. Like
drink of water while you're eating. That's a big one. Yeah,
otherwise it just passes right through you.
Water-based foods.
What's that?
Water-based foods.
Yeah, water-based foods, right? So I think that's a big one the day before, and parents can obviously help with that stuff, with that prep. I think another one before, like we talked about sleep, we talked about hydrating. I think once you're getting to the tryouts, and this is something a lot of kids struggle with or they don't like. They hate being the first one in the gym. Teenagers, they can be self-conscious and they're like, oh, I don't want to go in there because nobody's there yet.
Especially when they can't be on their phone.
Yeah, not so much. It's just they're embarrassed. They again, it gets back to that point of nobody cares about, nobody's really watching you. They're all too busy worried about being what they're doing and how they're being judged. They're not worried about judging you as much. So I tell players, it's good to be early. Get your shoes on. You don't want to be rushing in at the last minute. You also want to show the coach that you're excited to be there, right? Like a coach notice, first kid in the gym every tryout or first kid in the gym for practice. That's a good sign for coaches that kids don't really register.
Yeah. Something to be said about what you show, the first time can easily reflect on what you're going to do the next time.
Yeah, or first impression kind of thing. Yeah. That first impression, you don't, the whole line, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Mm-hmm. Not enough kids worry about that stuff. They don't understand that that really applies. So, so being early, being ready, there's nothing worse than seeing a kid that is, again, getting their equipment on later, or sometimes they show up and they have to go get changed. And, and especially COVID times, you don't know if there was going to be a change room available or something like that. So being ready. Also, what about in the tryouts when they start? You guys have any like body language, demeanor things about players?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're early, the one good thing is ball cart might be out and grab a ball. You can already start like hitting against the wall and stuff.
Yep.
So then it's just kind of nice because might lead into a pepper drill with the next person who shows up. So then I'm not sure, but some tryouts just start with, some coaches may just have players probably do a warm up. The warm up might involve the volleyball, it might not. So then if they already have the ball, they've already kind of met someone. It might be a partner based thing. So it's just kind of, there is, as nervous as it is to be there first, there's certain advantages to it, right? You've already made an icebreaker with someone.
Mm-hmm. It's also awkward to walk in late too, right? That's the alternative.
Well, yeah.
Right? And everybody's partnered up and stuff. That's a weird feeling for kids. So yes, that's another reason to go early. Sorry, Meach, cut you off.
That and square dancing. Don't want to be without a partner. Right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Definitely.
But no, I was going to say, you might even have to do a pre-warm-up warm-up, because you don't know what's going to happen in the tryout on if that's going to coincide with you. So if you need certain muscles stretched, if you need to go a little bit more on your legs, a little bit more on your arms, you want to make sure that you're good even before the excitement of the tryout.
If you got a nagging injury, yeah, for sure. Although that's probably that definitely sounds like an adult warm-up to me, like pre-warm-up warm-up, you know what I mean? Like
Well, I think there's something to be said where, like, if an athlete knows, let's suppose they did something like, my daughter today is at a tryout and she had the beep test in phys ed class today, and she had a tryout yesterday, so her legs are sore, right? So she might get there. I think that's what you're talking about, right? Like, she might warm up her legs a little more or do a little more stretching in that area, because every age, especially these days, like, athletes are going multiple days a week, and it's overuse, right? So you really got to take good care. Some kids might need a shoulder band. Some kids might need to do some physio that way.
The warm up will help, like, definitely prevent injury if they're going to get into some explosive stuff early. But your performance is kind of set. If you just had a tryout, then beep test, then tryout, your limit on how hard you can go is already set. Right,
but you might want to warm up, like, if your muscles are already starting to repair. You might need to loosen them up a little longer. I think he's just getting at your specific. What if you have a knee problem? As a young kid.
That's what I'm thinking. It's
and
you've got something nagging.
But don't forget, knee injuries, shoulder injuries are happening to kids younger and younger because they're overusing them. Right, like we are taxing young athletes more than ever, and there's not a lot on the recovery side, not a lot on injury prevention side. We're going to do a lot about that, injury prevention stuff, booklets and stuff for parents and players, easy to read stuff that they can use in the gym, practical stuff. Yep.
But how big is that if you're, walk in and this player is already doing some dynamic stretches? That's like, whoa, this person knows that already? That's what I was going
to say too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I think it's not.
They got a band or something. Like,
it's not a kiss ass thing either. Like, it can come off as kiss ass if you get tie a parachute to your back and start sprinting.
That would be
headband, goggles, but
it's probably a little intimidating for other players walking in and be like, oh man, this person's like already got their gear on and like they're already warming up their shoulder with a band or whatever, doing like
we've all known those players, I think, that do the serious intense warm up and then they underhand serve it under the net.
Hey man, but that shoulder is feeling good. He can do it 1,000 times. So
my favorite are the volleyball players that have the right outfit, but then they can't play at all. But that's fine. That's okay. We're not here to bully people, but you know what I mean. The pretenders, there are those. But in your case, you're right. Like a young athlete that is actually taking care of their body, that will reflect pretty positively in a coach's mind if you're worried about impressing a good coach.
Yeah.
And talk about building for the future. Like, that's a player in itself that says, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm going to do what I got to do to perform.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, it's true. It reflects good. Like, that's, I think, one thing kids don't understand, that, because they're so caught up in the judgment thing, they don't realize how much the adults notice, right? Little things that, a lot of kids spend all their time hiding how responsible they are because it's nerdy. Whereas what they should be doing is understanding that how it looks from whoever the authority figure is. Not that you want to teach your kids to blindly follow and please authority, but if you just understood how responsible you are, and you spend a lot of time hiding that as a kid, and then as an adult, it's like the thing that we all want to show off more than anything. It's
exactly. If you want to impress your parents.
Yeah. I know, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Hey kids, if you want to impress your parents, just saying, go wash the car. You get like everything you want for a year.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, I was thinking, in the U.S. Open, the 19-year-old won it, and the guy who came second, the Norwegian Casper, I don't know how to say his last name.
Rude.
And he was flat out impressed with Alcaraz's level of athleticism, because Alcaraz had, I think, 3 5-set matches leading up to the final. So he had, 3 or 4 more hours total game time, right? And so Casper, he was saying, he's like, yeah, like my team like considered that. We were aware of that, and we were going to see if we can kind of take advantage of that. But he did not display any weakness in his speed and athleticism, right? So 19 years old, mind you, professional athlete. He has Rafa Nadal's doctor helping him and stuff like that. He's got a full team, like all the support in the world, but he was able to do it, right? Like that's a crazy, that's a load on the legs, right?
Yep. So for those of you listening in the year 2042, Erik's talking about the 2022 U.S. Open, where 19-year-old Carlos Alcaraz won the U.S. Open in 4 sets, right?
Yeah, he won it in 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's super impressive.
And that was his first big win too.
First major victory for him. First major final for him, I believe.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
final and win.
In the majors, yeah. And he is 19, and we'll see where that leads. But, tennis has a good history of, protecting the young phenoms like Nadal, you said before. But, I think that energy, being ready, the stretching, the body maintenance thing is more important than ever for these young players. So that's a big one. Next on my list I had was energy and attitude. You guys want to talk about that for players?
Sorry,
sorry.
just before you go to that, you mentioned the beep test.
Yes.
What is that?
So the beep test is it's a phys ed class test that they use to measure kids. So at the start of the year, they give them. Are you asking because you don't know, or are you asking because you want?
No,
to
I've never heard of it.
Okay, good. Yeah. The beep test is a phys ed test. So they have the kids run according to the sound of these beeps in phys ed class, and they test them at the start of the year as like a baseline, and then they test them at the end of the year, so the phys ed teacher can say, "Look at how much." Sorry, that's my. Look at how much better you are at physical activity now that you've had phys ed class.
It's an endurance test.
Yeah, it's an endurance test, but it's used as a measurable data. So the phys ed teacher can say to their school board, "Look, I made the kid. First they ran level 6, then they ran level 7."
Is that the main? Yeah.
That's the main reason from the. And it's a physical test, so they gauge. My daughter was saying that she's going to intentionally run poorly at the start of the year, and then at the end of the year she'll look like a rock star.
Did teachers not know that? Like
that strategy?
Do this? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming they did. Did you do that in your day?
Yeah, for sure I did.
Yeah. It's an intentional.
Especially when you do it again every year. From 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah. It's a good way to make the teacher and the school system believe that you're just a phenom who's improved so much. So I think maybe I ruined things for kids globally, because let's face it, every phys ed teacher in the world is watching this.
And then when the teacher asks the kid,
they
"How
better
did you
be
get better?" They
You
go,
can give out those secrets.
"I ate pasta."
I ate pasta. Oh, you mean like lasagna? Lasagna's not a pasta, stupid. Anyway, sorry, Meach. That's gonna keep coming up to
Yeah,
the
for
show,
sure it is.
Never mind.
How about this one? This is a simple one. How about jog everywhere in tryouts? Meach first.
I would say, I would say jog, because I was going to say sprint, but you might look a little crazy.
Yes, you would.
Jim Carrey and Cable Guy.
Okay, guys, get a water break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So jogging everywhere, right? Eric, would you say?
Yeah. Well,
Hustle.
Oh, shoot, Meach, my ears.
You can handle it.
Did I turn up too loud?
I better-
No,
Yeah,
it's good. It's just he started screaming all this. The guy doesn't even talk into the mic, and he starts screaming into it. Did you have too much? No, I was gonna make that joke about lasagna. Anyway, Eric,
carb load for the podcast. Yeah, you're still talking about energy and attitude, right?
energy, attitude, and jogging. I guess it's all part of the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well said.
Yeah, you got nothing bad to say. About that.
Yeah, well, what does it show to you if you were a coach and you were watching a kid who was like walking to water break, walking to get the ball, walking to the next part of the drill?
Yeah, it completely looks like, exactly. You're gonna have to wait for this player, and then even the other players, they might even get ahead of you. So, and then, or they might start doing it. Now the whole drill's gonna get slowed down. The main thing I think why I always did was just the drill would get too slowed down too much, and then so you're always jogging to shag the ball, get back in line, and then all of a sudden you see it has an additional effect to that of just like the energy you're trying to keep into it, because typically you'll do a technical drill, and then sometimes there will be a dialogue breakdown afterwards for 5 minutes or longer, right? And then so the longer that dialogue kind of goes on, the more you're going to like cool down, right? So if you can always kind of keep that energy up, you're going to stay warmer. And then when you get into the next drill, it just kind of flows a little bit easier. And then, the coach is always describing the drill, and then you need to get in your positions. So you may as well run to that as well, because then you're just cutting the downtime. You're going to get more uptime or more playing time with the ball, right? So more reps. It's just works really well.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a few things. Yeah, the time, it shows that you care about the coach's time, value the coach's time, not making them wait for you, which kind of suggests arrogance. And then two, you're just not flat-footed. Like if you're jogging, not only does it show you're interested, active, your energy level's high, but you're also just not going to be flat-footed. The kids that stand around, walk around, it's hard to just get going into the next thing when you're at the front of the line. The kids that are standing around. And that comes up to a red flag later on for coaching side of this, the red flag about kids standing around. But Yeah.
I guess you get out of the danger zone too, right? There's some bad spots where you don't want to be standing, obviously, like down the hitting line or whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah. You don't want to.
But
Jog it for survival.
why not?
Be aware.
Yeah. So you said shag balls with energy. Now this one I want to say that parents can help support kids. I think this is the big one. We've talked about this on the show about in other contexts too. But well, before I get to that, I think cheering on other players and meaning it. I think coaches love to see, I think we can all agree, positivity really helps. Not the fake loud, that stuff. You have to, if you genuinely learn to cheer on other players, and parents, you can help model this, by the way, because some parents, this comes up on a lot of Facebook groups, where parents are always, some parents are accused of bad talking other teammates, like during tournaments, during games. Some parents are recording video, and later on they go home that night and hear the parents near the camera bad talking their kid or other kids on the team. Could you imagine that?
No.
Yeah, so that modeling that behavior of, cheering on kids and not criticizing them is very important. And if you teach your kids that, good coaches notice that stuff as well, right? Like, when someone gets a great hit, cheer them on. And mean it. Like not the, I heard on a podcast that this is supposed to be good, so I'm going to do it. Genuinely take joy. Because remember, these players could be your teammates. And the more you genuinely care for their success, odds are the more successful you're going to be too. Because you're not going to be a negative person. Negative people tend to, you press too hard too, right? If you want someone to fail and then they crank it or do something really good, you're more under stress because you want to match that or supersede that or go above what they've just done. That's a stressful way to live. Versus if someone kills it and you cheer for them, then you actually will probably hit it better yourself the next time because you're pumped up by their positivity, right?
Right. That's right. And it shouldn't matter if it's a weaker player or a better one. You stay an even keel in the respect that you give.
Yeah. Be positive be positive with players struggling too. That's a great point. I like that when I see young, strong players help out or not snicker behind the backs of players that aren't so strong. That's a really good quality. Like for me as a coach, if I see a player back talking another player or making faces or joking, that's a red flag for me. But that kid,
especially in that practice or tryout.
Yeah, it happens, right? You see, like the cliquiness among kids, it can be toxic, right? And that's another thing that coaches have to watch for because it's the culture that you're bringing, right? Because what you accommodate, like if you bring in a player who's not exhibiting good qualities just because their skill, then be ready for that team to have that same quality. Or things will, the mindset of that group will be a little bit toxic, right? The team will be as toxic as you allow it to be. So energy, positivity is very important. The one thing that I really wanted to get to today that I see, and we talked about this before, is the stand out in tryouts. I think a lot of kids don't understand, and my kids included when I talk to them. And it's not about pressuring your kid to play better. It's about pressuring them or teaching them to play. This is a tryout. This is a short window of time. If everybody in the gym is just trying to not mess up, then they're not going to stand out, right? Like I've seen players who take it easy in some drills because they're afraid of, I don't know what, messing up, or maybe the players on the other side aren't their level, but it's different, right? This is not a phys ed class game. This is not a rec game. This is a moment to stand out. So if you do something special or if you have special skill, you have a very limited time to do it, and you have some people who are very quick to pull the trigger on judging you. So you can be, I mentioned this earlier, you can be ordinary or you can be extraordinary. And so the idea is to, I don't know why you always laugh when I say that. You don't like when I say that?
It just reminded me of exuberant. That's all.
Oh, okay. we were joking around about my name Zuby and how it sounds a lot like exuberant. And Erik, when I said that, for some reason,
there's no connection.
There's no connection. But so you want to be exuberant in you want to be extraordinary and you want to stand out. One of my favorite modern philosophers is Seth Godin. You guys know Seth Godin, and he I remember he wrote a book. I think it was a book called Purple Cow, and the whole idea behind Purple Cow, because I'm into business too and philosophy, and his message was like, nobody remembers when they're driving by. When you're a little kid, you look at a cow and go, "Oh my God, cows!" But as adults, we're kind of numb to them, right? But if someone put a purple cow in the field, you'd be like, "Oh my God, that's a purple cow," right? And he said, so you want to be a purple cow, like as a business or any situation where you want to stand out. You don't want to be doing what everybody else is doing. You got to do something different. And I think that's a great message for tryouts and athletes, that you can be a regular cow, or you can be a purple cow.
That's right.
So just start screaming out "purple cow" at your kids, and they'll know what you mean, or they'll think you're crazy if they missed this episode.
Yes.
So now you have to watch with your kids.
That's all.
Win-win.
That's right.
You can almost tie that thought and the one before in together, because to have positive energy and to be cheering other players on, well, you're less likely to cheer someone on if you don't see that they're putting effort in, right? But if you're trying to be this purple cow, you're going to be putting effort in. Therefore, you're going to make it very easy for others to be like, "Oh, like nice hustle." And then what's going to happen from that is that if one player is putting value in the effort of the other players, that means they're more engaged in what that player is doing. And so say there's already two players that are showing this kind of connection and respect for one another. A hard-driven ball is hit at one of them, and they dig it, but it's kind of shanked out the back. Now that other player, they're on the court with them, again, giving their attention and value in their effort, they're much more ready to snap an action and chase down that ball. Because we've always seen it in practice where that happens, the ball goes up, but it's shanked out the back, and no one goes and gets it, right? Or one person chases, and then the other four just sit there, right? The other one's on the court who's dug the ball, the other one's running, the other four are just staying there. So it has this, feedback loop, right? If you have to put effort in.
I love that phrase.
I like that. It's a good one. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And then you're already building leadership skills here, right? And so coaches are going to be all over that.
Players will always be able to, someone will always outplay you, but the energy that you put in could be the difference between the player that just got cut or just got selected because of your effort. And you never want to have someone out effort you, even the top place guy.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah, because effort is, again, one of those things in your control. And like you said, there's always going to be someone better than you. Now, when I was in my prime, I didn't meet anybody better than me. But, theoretically.
Well, you are Zub.
I am
exuberant.
Exuberant. I used to be exuberant.
Yeah.
Exuberant. Anyway, no, but yes. That's if you don't say them on the air, they don't count. So, dibs. No, yeah, that's a great one. Meets the hustle factor, right? You can't outweigh that. Coaches love to see hustle, and it is a recipe for disaster. This idea of wanting to be the best. Again, it's such a cliche, but you really want to be your best, right? And that's all that you can do, because there will be someone who walks along or walks in the gym who might be better than you, or you play against a team. And what a horrible life you lead if you're living a life of comparing yourself to everybody else all the time. Like, that's sort of a cultural toxicity thing right now too with social media. But so you want to get away from that and just worry about you. I always tell people too that just tying in with not comparing and the hustle thing, 100-meter sprinters are like the epitome of like focus, right? Like, you got to be all in your lane. Nobody wins a 100-meter sprint by looking sideways to compare themselves to where they are, right? They just are looking at the finish line straight ahead. And I think that's a great metaphor for athletes. You want to succeed, worry about you, worry about your lane. Don't worry about other lanes. Just put your head down and work hard. At the end, you might be able to look around when you're done, raise your hand, all that stuff. But athletes who compare themselves to others, that's a great one. Yeah. Hustle is immeasurable, I think, right?
That's right. For sure.
Erik, what do you think about hustle?
I think it's part of your lane and like attitude and energy, right? Like the giving energy outward.
I mean, do you think hustle is like good?
I think hustle's great.
Like, how good?
Very good.
I'm trying to remember Chris Farley, that Saturday Night Live skit.
That's what I was getting from that.
You
That's
remember?
what I was
You remember
getting
that
from
part where? Remember when you were when he's talking to Paul McCartney? He's like, remember when you were in the Beatles? Yeah, I do remember that. It's pretty good. Eh? That was awesome. Anyway, we're off topic.
Good.
Stop goofing around, guys.
All right.
Okay, here's a good one. What about players that are coachable? What does that mean to you? Players that are coachable. Can you think of anything?
Yeah, player has positive body language towards the coach, listening, respectful. Again, when they ask them to get in like to a position on the court, they kind of hustle over to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
see what you did there.
Yeah, just I think just listening, body language, and respect. So, and then unfortunately, unless if it's a weaker-minded coach, I don't know how to say it, but you're going to start developing that coach will develop a preference for that player, right? And for a coach who has a problem with balancing out or not playing favoritisms, that is one thing that, if you're too likable, but then...
So you're saying don't be too likable?
Well...
Oh, you're crossing into a different point.
Yeah. I'm crossing over.
See, I don't think we should have pre-show meetings.
Yeah, maybe
because you're getting all confused in your head.
No, I just did get confused.
No, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, though.
But that's with a non-ideal coach, right? That is kind of asking.
But just from the player's perspective, though, like from a player's perspective, you got to be coachable.
Yes. Yeah.
And that means
simple. It's simple. It's just.
And I like what you said. Body language.
Yeah.
Don't if they put you in a position that you don't want to be, that's pretty bad. If you act negatively, right? If they say, "Oh, can you try to swing right side for this?" and you like roll your eyes because you're left side.
Yeah.
Or do you mind trying middle this practice? And you don't want to play middle, which is like the number one thing that players don't want to do. Play middle because they don't get to pass and it's hard to get a good set right in the middle. So be coachable, be positive, be open to things. If your coach is reasonable, it gets tricky. Going back to like you said, that it gets tricky if the coach is like, too bound by likable players. But the other problem is if a coach is not good, if a coach is giving you bad advice, that can be tricky too. But for focusing on the player, I think parents can encourage their players to be very positive, open-minded, agreeable with the coach. Again, like I said, to a point. I mean, if it's unreasonable, if they're telling you like weird stuff, then you're only human. But you still, in a tryout situation, if you really want to be on this team, you might want to rethink your desire to be on the team if you're not liking the coach in tryouts. But if it is a team, you want to be a player who is, that's like the number one quality anybody can have in life, eh? Like whether it's employment, business, sports, willingness to learn is a phrase that comes up again and again because we don't expect whether you're applying for a new job or whether you're applying for a team, if you're willing to work, like what Meach was talking about with hustle too, if you're willing to work or willing to learn, then the sky's the limit, right? Because that's the secret ingredient. You might not know how to do X skill, but if you're willing to learn, that means that you're gonna get it faster than someone who's a little closed-minded.
That's right.
Meach, you want to add anything there?
Yeah. Especially during tryouts, especially if, we had, remember we had some areas where obviously we knew a little bit more than the coach or maybe a lot more. Yeah. But at a tryout especially, you don't want to challenge the coach in front of anybody.
Yes.
Right. You want to be agreeable. You want to do as they say because it's their tryout. If they ask you, you can give your opinion. But in terms of making it a display where you're just trying to show what you know or what you can do on top of them, just let your skills ride. Just let your.
That's a great point. Yeah, you don't want to be like you said, just trying to show that you know more. Really bad sign. Because again, and it's always better, no matter what circumstance, right, to take things private. Right, you don't want to have this public confrontation.
That's right.
Reflects poorly on you. Erik, you mentioned this earlier too, about how you always feel bad after those moments if you have some sort of public confrontation. So, it's always better. You don't even have to take it private. I think that if you're having those issues with a coach at a tryout, then maybe you might not want to play for that coach.
That's right.
And that's where you make those decisions. And it's sort of, I do tell this to players too, and coaches, that you're kind of both on tryout. Like, not enough coaches think about that, or clubs think about that.
That's
Your
right.
club is sort of, and parents, I hope you think about this too, because I really get tired of kids feeling that the club has all the power. You know what I mean? You want those players to think of themselves as valuable too. And, if the club, I see parents climbing all over each other to try to get a spot on a club, and they're not even stopping to think, wait a minute, what is my kid bringing to this club?
Yeah.
Maybe my kid is the goal. Like, I mean, we don't want to, I know there's a problem with parents who like overvalue their kid and think their kid is, a saint. But on the other side of it, if there are things in practice that you see that are either from a club perspective or a coaching perspective not useful or productive or helpful or supportive, then parents need to also say, you know what, I don't think we're playing for this club. And I've had that moment where, and not in a mean way, just, later on, we're like, there were some red flags there that we need to look for. Maybe that's what we should move into. Eric, you look like you're going to say something.
My question is, are there too many volleyball players and not enough spots?
Yes. Yep. 100%. I think that's 100% true. And there's not enough. We talked about this too in the good coach, bad coach episode 1, that there's not enough coaches to keep up with the players. Too many players, too many clubs.
Because it's part of what's creating these weird scenarios, right? Where we're overlooking the quality of the coach and like you said, put them on tryout.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right. If the whole point is to just be on the team, it's not about becoming better at volleyball, then it's like
no. Yeah, or just if it's what I mean by not like putting the coach on tryout or the club on tryout is if it's toxic. Like you don't want to put your kid, you don't want to pay thousands of dollars to leave your kid in a toxic environment.
Why would you overlook that? It's because you're just vying for a spot.
Yeah, because you're desperate.
Team.
Yeah, desperate for the attention and the spotlight that club brings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty tricky situation because, and this is sort of why we're doing this whole volleyballology thing, because, what's happening is you're getting this whole private world of clubs, and we've talked about this in what we do too, right? Where you could charge a fortune and have a bunch of parents bring their kids, pay you a fortune, pay your coaches a private club where the coaches make good money, and then you get this great club because the coaches are a higher standard. The problem with that is then you get this two-tiered or multi-tiered volleyball system where the kids who don't come from the richest families don't get great instruction. So that's where, we're, in addition to this podcast, we're going to do those instructional videos. It'll be free content for parents and players online. Hopefully it helps them just learn those little things that, we teach to our private, like we've given private clinics over, 20 years to players. And but we know that those are only the wealthy families or the families that can afford those clinics. So we kind of want to, we said to ourselves a while ago, let's put this up online for free.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of going to help this problem of, volleyball, a certain level of volleyball for the highly, for the rich.
Privileged.
That word privilege, right? But yeah, so I think that's a really important point that if clubs, maybe we should get into red flags that parents can look for, in practices, because there are some things that I wish more parents would say to their kid, we're not going back to that club. And while we're on that topic, like I mentioned to you guys before the show too about re-signing players. This is part of that insecurity on both sides, right? Clubs are insecure. They don't want to lose their players. So they'll re-sign a whole team. And then the player or parent doesn't want to risk losing a spot next year. So they agree to the re-sign. And what you've done as a club or as a sporting agency is you've taken the beauty of the competition, fighting for a spot, out of the equation in the name of, we want to get our team full, and I don't want to have to bother trying to find a spot next year. It's the lazy way. Like, imagine if pro teams operated this way, or high-level sports teams. All right, everybody, you're all guaranteed a spot on the team next year.
Yeah, doesn't work.
Just diminishes the quality, the fight. So I see this as a toxic trend coming into the club world where we're just re-signing the whole team and forget it. Like, it's just not a useful, productive thing.
Who starts that cycle, the club or the parent?
It's definitely the club. The club does it. So the governing bodies, I don't know if it's true of all areas, but in our area it's happened where the governing body allows clubs to re-sign players.
And why? It's out of
Well,
because they don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
So if they start this re-signing or thing at 13U, they're more likely to have them still at 18U.
Yeah, it tends
the
to.
philosophy of it?
It tends to happen. So what happens is you got a gem of a player, let's say, or a player that you like, and you offer them a spot next year, and they can re-sign. And if they turn it down, then they're going into that weird area of, well, it's a little slap in the face to the club. So if you show up at their tryouts next year, they're gonna know you didn't accept their spot. It's a bit of a game, right? Oh, and then so they all just sign it because, again, the parents have lower self-esteem. The player is desperate for a spot. The clubs are terrified of losing good players. That's the big thing. So over the years, what would happen to a club is they would develop a player, and then when the player gets to a certain level off their coaches, then they would go to the big-time rival club. That's what pisses clubs off. And they're like, oh, that's our player. But again, as a coach myself, I'm like, hey, if you feel you need to go somewhere, you go somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am not, again, but this is like we talked about this, right? If you're a person whose ego doesn't need this this glory.
Yeah.
So the irony of all of this is if you are a coach, so coach is listening, nobody's listening, but if somebody sees this, tell someone else. If you are the coach that is confident and secure and only interested in the best interest of the player, right? Selfless. Don't worry about the club. You go play where you feel it's best for you. You will keep that player.
That's right.
Because they understand that you care about them. The minute you start talking about, well, we developed that player and they went to that club, or we developed that player and they went to that, come on.
Volleyball developed them. It's not the club. It's that player love volleyball. They like what they're doing. If they're not staying, you have to free them, because either way it's going to be a toxic environment of the player, or it's going to be a toxic environment for the coach.
Yeah, by definition, once you have those thoughts or those lines, you are already proving that you're the wrong place for that player. Like I've seen, we've had, organizations who have not let players play with other let's suppose another club is doing a clinic with a high level player that they got, or a high level coach. And I've seen clubs not let their players go sign up for that because it's with a different club. I'm like, so you don't want that player to develop. You just want them to stay in your system. Wonderful. That tells you everything you need to know.
Is theirs the perfect system? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with someone like so I've seen national team player, European pro coach running a clinic for another club, and a rival club said to their athletes, don't sign up. Like, well, why? There's no logic in that. So that's a red flag for me. I don't like it when clubs re-sign a whole team. I think that just takes every bit of fight out of your players. It takes every bit of what if I've seen this too. Phenomenal player walks in the gym. Sorry, team's full. But they're better than every player that you've re-signed.
Yeah.
But clubs, in the name of fear and losing players, they will re-sign everybody. And it's becoming a trend up here where we are. And I'm sure it's a trend where a lot of people are listening to. So,
it sounds like you could probably end up losing a player. Like if this wasn't happening, if it was a good coach, you lose a player for that next season, and they go to a team with a whole bunch of other players that say did the same thing. They grew in that previous team's environment where it was a good coach and everything. They all jump ship, go to this new club. Coach isn't quite as good. They're not going to have as good of a rewarding feeling of progression. I think the progression of getting better at the sport is the main thing. As a kid when I was playing it, that made me enjoy the sport. If I didn't feel noticeably better at the end of that season, I don't think I was enjoying it as much. So again, maybe in that situation, they might actually go back to that previous club, to that previous coach. And again, if it's a good coach, they're not going to take offense to that.
yeah.
I don't think.
When was when's this re-signing happening? The year before?
Yeah. So like at the end of the year, a lot of clubs will just offer re-signing, and kids have a limited window to accept it. And then, and depending on what type of player they are, like a confident player would probably not accept it, or it depends on how much they like the coach, right? Like if the coach is great and the coach is moving up, then they might accept it.
And a good player shows up, and they won't accept that good player because
They won't even.
they can't kick someone off the team.
Yeah, or what'll happen is they will. So some clubs are also using it as they're not telling players that so a player will show up for a tryout, pay for a tryout, and then the club will say or not say that the first team is full.
Has already been made.
Yeah, but they'll try to use that to get a second or a third team, and then they will eventually tell the player, "Oh yeah, all the spots are gone on the first team." So. But we didn't say that on the website or when you signed up for that first team, because you can pick which team you want to try out for too, right? First team, second team, third team.
Yeah.
So again, it's a really nasty, weird, again, like we said on the first episode, it always goes back to insecurity, right? Like if you had this confident, open world of people who don't need the ego boost, but then we wouldn't even be doing this show because every coach would be phenomenal and every parent would be phenomenal and every kid would be, willing to prove themselves. But I mean, the beauty of it is too, let's be honest, like it is priming kids for a nasty world, right? Like this whole, all the politics, every job has it, every career has it, every place has it. The only thing about this that bugs us, I think, is that it is sports, and it's supposed to be the one of very few places where it's about performance.
Yeah.
And it's becoming like a school almost, where it's like not about performance really, it's about how you follow rules, how well you play the game. Like in school, you can be a genius and not do well in school because you're questioning the whole system, and that system punishes those kids. So, it should be like the absolute meritocracy of your skill trumps everything. Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
But again, we're seeing the whole supply and demand. That's another. This is again symptom of the supply and demand, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what else I was going to say there, but it's like there is, again, unfortunately, it seems like there is an advantage in this situation that you find a good coach or a club that has quality coaches and helps kind of because again, just like how we're trying out for different players, clubs should be trying out for different coaches. They shouldn't have an affinity and they shouldn't have an issue with letting a coach go out of just laziness or, they don't want to get in a disagreement with that coach or something like that because, so what I'm trying to say is that there's an advantage in developing up through a club.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
It's
in this
how
situation,
you go about it, right?
Well, it's just, we want them to be open to go to any club. But I can see the advantage of having like your A team, B team, or C team or something like that, right? Because then you can actually have interdevelopment, and then you can actually pull up some players from the lower squads sometimes to have that opportunity to play in those higher level tournament, if someone gets injured or something like that. I think those tiered team levels, it's a great thing.
No, the tiered team levels are great. What we're talking about here is guaranteeing the spot the next year.
Yes, I know.
That's a tricky thing.
Yeah, I know. It's just I think they're using that. So they're using that preseason signing so they make a team, and then the only thing they can do is make a second team. So they have it backwards, but they're in a perfect world where you have good coaching, you will get into multiple tier teams or whatever. That makes sense, right? So the one good thing is that, okay, so say the coach that has a bunch of athletes, 80% of the team signs before the season's over, right? So that team's already locked in. And then you have a good player show up for tryouts. Okay, can't get onto this team. You can get on to the next team, right? And then maybe they don't want to, but they have a good feeling towards this club or something, so that they stay. And then throughout the season, perhaps, both teams practice against each other, they scrim and whatnot. That player starts to stand out. Maybe this coach is humble enough to realize, oh man, maybe I should give this player an opportunity. So when some come up, they can bring them up for that tournament, play them more. That player may end up actually switching up, right?
Yeah, no, I know you're putting a positive spin on it for sure, but the problem exists in that you said 80% of the team is full. I'm talking about when it's 100%.
That's 100%. Brutal.
That's what's happening.
And you have to put a lot of faith into something that you have no idea if that club's going to be rewarding for your faith in it.
Yeah, and like the other thing is too, like, don't forget that means that the coach is moving up with the same group, right?
Yeah.
Like your club years are like 4 or 5 years. You had a different club coach, Erik, right? Every year you played. Did you ever have back-to-back coaches twice?
I think only at the end.
At the end, yeah, exactly.
Years,
yeah, but for developmental, like the ideal scenario is to change the coach every year and have a good coach.
Yeah.
I hate it when I see coaches moving up with the same group of kids for two reasons. One, If the coach is great, then you're not letting other kids learn from that coach. Fundamental ages, they've moved up the ladder. And 2,
you're learning more.
Yeah, well, and 2, like you're not learning new perspectives, right? Like, so if that coach loves to emphasize one thing, then you just go up every year with that coach, and there might be another coach that has a totally different vibe that might teach you something else, and you never get to do that. So you're just trapped in this. And I think, also too, we know high level coaching, the philosophy of, players get tired of hearing, even a great coach, right? They get tired of hearing the same message over and over, the same philosophy. There's real benefit. You're not helping your kids. It's like, imagine going to school and having the same teacher every year for like 5 years of like your whole high school career. Like, you'd just be like checked out mentally by the end of it. So it's not good pedagogically speaking as a coach, or as a, as a philosophy for a coach to move up with a club. And that ties into one of our red flags for parents, like the next one. It is the idea that, coaches, one red flag that parents should look for, I think, and I think every parent watching or listening, all 2 or 3 of them will say, the favoritism that we're seeing. Club coaches can fall into the trap, some of them, of being a little too buddy-buddy with the players.
Yeah.
And that can be, it just gets problematic. Like, it's very disheartening, I think, for players to see a coach in an open tryout being goofing around with other players at the tryout who are legitimately not on the team yet, but in their minds,
we've already made it.
they've already made it. The coach knows they've already made it. I think it's just unprofessional, right? To be buddy-buddy. And it's something parents should watch for in tryouts. If you see a coach that's too buddy-buddy with players, you have to, again, it depends on where you live. If there's other club options, a lot of parents obviously stuck with no options.
Why do they do that? Because you see it so much.
Well,
especially in varsity.
Yeah, not just especially in varsity. It's again, it goes back to that little thing we talk about, insecurity. Right?
Yeah.
If you are a secure person, you don't need the affirmation of a kid coming up to you, or a player on your team, adult or youth, being your buddy. You need to be the professional. But if you're an insecure person, you're looking for attention, you want to be liked, you love to be part of the in crowd, that's every age group. That's why cliques form, right? It's the desire to be something bigger than yourself. And it takes a confident person to say, you know what, we're at a tryout, I'm going to treat you like everybody else. And that's the way it is. You don't have to be mean, but sure as heck shouldn't be laughing around in the gym. And
I agree. I think it definitely is insecurity, because probably on the first day of tryouts, the coach themselves is a little nervous, right? So maybe they reach out to one of those players coming back to make a little joke, give a little smile on their face. They feel a little bit lighter, more at ease. But now you've just made that little connection of, I guess it's not favoritism at that point, but you're deciding to communicate with them on I'm assuming it's a volleyball joke or something you're making, or
whatever it is.
And now even in your own mind as the coach, you're giving them a little bit of preference, and even telling yourself that you are now more likely to be taking them, right? So
it's just creating, in sociology we call it the in group and the out group.
And
you're instantly creating this. And kids notice this, right? They notice.
Well, you've done the same thing in that kid's mind now, right? So now they feel like, oh, I feel like this coach, they remember me from last year, they prefer me, I already feel a little more at ease, right? And if you're taking a little bit away of that nervousness, which can be good energy to go and try hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the reason why they're doing it is because like I said, it's just a toxic quality of a coach in a tryout, and it's not professional. You want to run tryouts like if you want to imitate a pro coach, now's the time to do it. If pro coaches are hanging around high-fiving their best buds on the team, then they're not going to last long as pro coaches, right? You got to treat it like business, and you want, if anything, you want the opposite. If you're a really good coach, you want your players to be insecure about their spot. You want them to fight and claw and perform. That's literally what our society is based on, right? Performance, being buddy. I mean, Meach, you lived through an experience with that too in your varsity days, right? Without naming teams and locations.
Yes. I can remember when it just seemed like the whole team was this buddy situation, this kind of camaraderie only amongst them, and so then I'd feel like an outcast, and that just made me more nervous. That just made me more anxious about it, and I didn't get to perform my best under those situations.
Too uptight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
felt like. But you did get revenge. I remember in like a beach volleyball tournament. Wasn't there a beach volleyball tournament, beach twos tournament, where you had some revenge? You picked up
Yes.
some amazing beach partner. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do
tell me,
actually.
tell me, what's this?
Let's tell that story.
I was we were playing. I think. Wait a second. I think it was you.
It was me,
Yes.
the amazing beach partner.
Yes, the Imagine Beach
Oh
partner.
my God, it was.
Some of the
my
greatest
God.
days of my life.
I think
But-
I came riding into the tournament on a horse,
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That's right.
shirtless. Wait a minute. It was an Old Spice commercial. My bad. Sorry. No, sorry. I'll let you tell that story. 'Cause that was a fascinating story. And it did talk about insecure coaching. We had that great story that became a story forever.
Oh man, I tell you, just to kind of make it a little bit shorter, but I was actually playing the coach of my former volleyball team, and
Who was buddy with everybody.
who was buddy, especially his partner was a buddy on the team.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
Me,
Yeah.
I had Zuby and myself, and he
A lot of pent-up
basically
energy to.
he basically had no clue, even though I played for him for quite a while. He had no clue of the potential of what I could do. But he soon found out.
Well, the beauty of it is by getting me to play former team, it instantly, let's be honest, it made you comfortable. Right?
Yes.
It's sort of what happened to me in my story where I came back from varsity and practiced with you guys.
Yes.
And you guys said, "Oh my God, how good you are," when I thought that I was awful when I was playing with my teammates in varsity because I was 17.
Right.
So it was actually, you probably didn't mean to, but you just called who you knew. And that's why you were able to perform in front of these guys, right? Because if you were teaming up with another varsity teammate of yours, you probably would have been just as nervous, right?
Oh yeah,
But
for
anyway,
sure.
I'll let
for
you
sure.
tell the funny part, the best part of the story.
The best part was we're playing side by side. We're siding out, matching point for point, and basically he started to get nervous. The other coach got nervous on how we were playing him. The funny part is that he faked a timeout and said, "Oh, is there any ice on the court? This is a beach volleyball game."
How do you fake a time? Okay,
No.
This
So
is
he
attempt
I think
to
Meach,
try.
I think Meach. So Meach, maybe we were winning. We started
Yes.
pulling away.
Yes, we started pulling
Right,
away.
and then he stops and fakes an
my
injury.
Oh,
Yes.
talk about insecure coaching. And so
Oh, my
and he
goodness.
yelled over to the table. "You guys got any ice over there?" Grabbing his ankle or calf, acting like that's why they were losing.
I think he picked the wrong injury for what was wrong, but
Yes, but
Yeah.
that goes to the insecure coach who's buddy with teammates.
Yeah.
And then he gets his, the guy that he never plays, beating him, starting to pull away from him in a beach match. And he's right out of university himself. He was fairly young.
that's right.
So in fairness, let's be in defense of him, he was a young, dope, insecure coach, right?
Right.
But he couldn't stand the idea of losing to his bench player.
Right.
So he faked an injury.
He didn't forfeit, did he?
I don't know if he did, but they lost either way. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
He
But-
had to keep playing, or else it's only two of you on the court, so he had to keep
Yeah.
playing. And I don't think he was really injured by any sort.
No, he only got
But,
the injury was pride related.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Do you have
And
any
we-
ice for my pride?
Nope.
I got a pride injury here. I pulled my pride.
And that just motivated us further, and we ended up spanking
That's
his
awesome.
ass.
Yeah.
Did you know you were gonna end up playing him?
No.
That's awesome.
No.
Good chance though. I mean, it was I don't know how many teams were there, but it was just
I
a
guess
funny
you see it,
opportunity. Yeah.
Same tournament, but it came up in the brackets that
Yeah.
that we were playing him. So
Mhm.
it was One of the best days.
Yeah. No, exactly, because it's that insecurity thing, and that's where, I mean, if parents can notice that cliquey vibe in a tryout, I tend to pull my kid out. It's so tricky though, because then if the parent also wants their kid to be in that cool group, right, or the kid wants to be in that cool group, and you got to teach your kids that if there's a cool group on the team, then it's going to end in toxicity. It never goes well if there's a cool cliquey group. And the coach is showing that laid back vibe with the players. It's with some players, again, if they can't hold it together professionally for like a 2 hour or 1 hour and a half practice, what's it gonna be like, when they're on the road in a tournament all day? Sorry, Erik.
Yeah, not to compare that to like when you've just been recruited for a varsity team, and then you're now, well, I guess if you're at the tryouts. Because mostly it's recruitment, then you go to tryouts. Even when you're recruited, it's not guaranteed you're on it. But not to compare that cliquey group to be a small group on the team. In the varsity situation, it's like the whole team is that cliquey group, right? And you're just the new person. And
well, I mean, in Meach's perception of that might not be accurate. I'm sure if he were to speak to other players on the team, they might have felt they weren't in the clique too. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
that's what I'm trying to differentiate between.
Yeah.
If you could have a team where there's a small group of individuals on that team who act in that way, and then even the ones there's been a few players on who re-signed and they're not part of it, but they're still re-signing or something. Yeah. If you have these weird small groups, I would consider that a red flag or kind of a weird situation or whatever.
Yeah, I think it goes back to see how the coach, for parents and players, see how the coach is sort of interacting with players. Is it professional, or is it, a little too... I've seen a lot of coaches that are just giving off the wrong vibe at the tryout about how they're going to interact with certain people versus you. And invariably, if you join that team, you're already in the out group. Just by definition of those scenes.
Yeah.
Right?
And don't forget that, especially players out there, there's other teams. There's lots of opportunities.
If you're lucky. It depends.
If
some places...
No. I would say if you're working towards it, if you've got that determination to have a team in what you want, I know not everywhere Boondock Sticks would have these type of opportunities, but if there is an opportunity where you can go multiple places, then go to multiple tryouts, experience different things in different styles, different coaches, and find what fits for you, and you'll have success.
And in defense too, like what you said, like, so if there is no club team near you, I mean, there's gyms and there's somewhere there's volleyball, right? Maybe it's not club. Maybe it's an informal organization that offers leagues. Right. Maybe it's the high school team, and, instructional videos online that are good, watching pro players. There's nothing that says that you have to miss a season and not develop as a player.
That's right. Oh, right? That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, looking at how far I went to do tryouts, to do the possibility of getting on a particular team just because it was different, I wouldn't change any of that for the world.
Even though you never got better.
I think I did get better, and I noticed your joke, and I will take it as a joke because I wouldn't be here at VOLLEYBALLOGY.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot. Yeah, we had tryouts for this role, and Meach was the only one who showed up. So,
but I showed up.
Oh, damn it! I keep getting fooled, and he hustled. And, yeah, good point. That was a funny story that we still joke about to this day. That you got any ice over there? Whenever we're losing a game or something, we always look over at each other and go, "You got any ice over there?" It's an inside joke for years. Now everybody will know what we mean.
That's right.
Okay, so more red flags for parents. One thing that I think is very important that I've noticed in tryouts is, this is a quick one, disorganized practice. I think that goes without saying. If the practice doesn't seem like it has a good flow, if there's balls floating around everywhere, if the kids aren't, Meach, be an adult. Be an adult. Here, okay?
That's why I remain silent. You know,
as soon as I said balls floating around, Amici started laughing like a child.
Mm-hmm.
Be an adult, Meach.
Yes.
Volleyballs.
So I can laugh.
Volleyballs floating around.
Float.
Did you have any other
Float serve?
ideas?
Okay, I'm just gonna put the camera on you guys.
I think
This
it's
is
the use
wor-
of the word float that made him laugh.
No, I think it was the.
I think it was the yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
you're too nice, Eric. It was the word balls.
Was it? Was
the
everyone
word-
serving? Were they all
Meach,
doing
why don't you
float
tell us?
serves?
Why don't you tell us why you smile? Why don't you tell America and the world why you were laughing? Look, you can't even.
Because when I think of balls,
Oh boy.
can't do it.
All right. We just lost the 12 and under bracket or whatever. I don't know. 14 and under. Oh, well. Now I'm going to have to put a rating on this. Okay. So if the practice is disorganized and there's a lot of things flying around, dangerous situations. I don't know. I don't know.
You're asking for it.
I don't-
Sidebar?
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Meach has the giggles now.
Okay. Very serious.
Okay, so if it's disorganized, then I think that parents can tell that stuff right away, right? And one of the signs of disorganization is when players are sitting off way too long. I've seen tryouts with like 60 players in the gym, and they're playing like 6-on-6 kings or queens court, and they're playing to like 6 or 7 points. So that means like half the gym is sitting down. Like I literally saw kids sitting down in a tryout waiting for their opportunity to get back on the court. That's crazy.
Nothing needs to be said there yet.
Yeah, just like too much waiting. If the drills aren't moving, if the kids aren't active, right?
How many courts with a 60?
So that was a
tryout?
2. So yeah, good question. That was a 2-court tryout. They had like over 60 kids in
Wow.
the tryout. Yeah, it was crazy. So they didn't even. That's another thing too about the organization. They didn't even schedule it right. I went to a tryout yesterday where they were running 50-minute tryouts. 50 minutes. Because they didn't get enough gym time, I guess, so they were just trying to load them in.
You need like a separate gym to warm up and then capitalize.
It was literally 50 minutes warm up to end.
That's
Craziness.
terrible.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the club
It's
just
really
not,
impersonal.
not getting, what they what the sport means. That's a red flag to me, right? And by the way, that was one of those clubs where a player walks in and they lied about the fact that the team that was available for tryout was totally booked up. And they were like, "Oh, we didn't tell you, but here you are now. Want to play on our second team? Actually, you're too good for the second team. So sorry." It was just awful. There's some good players walked in there to try it, and they weren't even able to consider for the top team.
Do they know how many players are going to try out?
Yeah, it's all that's the other thing too. So you pre-register for these tryouts, and they don't put down on the website that the top team's full. They take your money, then you show up, or the kids will show up. And then they're told that the top team's full, maybe halfway through the tryout or at the end of the tryout. And it's kind of a tricky little system they use to one get some money, and two, maybe to load up. Oh, let's see if we can get 2 or 3 teams now. So
And they just list it as a viable team.
yeah,
Without it being legit.
A few clubs are good. A few clubs will tell you 18, the top team or this team's filled up. But again, that's a bad practice. If you're talking about performance, I would never guarantee. This is sports. Like this is sports. I would never guarantee an athlete a spot on the team. If a player said to me, "Hey, I played really well this year. Do you think I could have a spot guaranteed for me next year?" I was like, "Well, why don't you show up next year and think of what it discounts." So all the players who went out on the beach and performed all summer, all the players who spent every day in the gym training, peppering nonstop. They worked their butts off. They did the whole Rocky scene, right? They ran through the snow in the summer, and they they went to Russia and they fought. Russian. What? And no, but they did all this training and then they show up and sorry, we re-signed everybody. Like what? Just like so. Again, remember our first episode we talked about the phenom at 12 or 14 or 15 is never the phenom at 25. It's just like you're discount. Like so, you were telling me that those players that ended the season 5 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, are better for sure than the player that was, coming to your club from somewhere else, or same maybe the player that didn't make that team. There's no way. Like that's definitely shift in our own lives. We've seen these shifts, right? Me from 17 to 18, Meach from, maybe never.
What's that?
Oh,
club?
are you even listening?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, though.
You're not even listening to the show.
Yeah, I'm listening.
How can we expect other people to listen to the show if you don't even listen to the show?
Well, I'm listening. I'm just.
Is it that I
saying
talk too
you're-
much? Everybody watching this
I
is
kinda
like,
went,
I know I'm with Meach on this. All right. What I said was, we've seen the jump and improvement in our own lives from like one year to the next.
Yes.
And I made a joke and said that you never saw that.
Not funny.
I drifted a little bit too into La La Land.
Meach is good. Look, he's wearing number 8 today. Depth chart number.
What chart?
Depth chart. Depth. Am I saying that wrong? Depth.
No, you're saying it right. I know you're saying depth.
Depth.
Yeah, depth chart.
Depth chart. Because the team has 6 players. So if Meach was number 8, then that's like two away from the top 6.
So cringe.
Anyway, I think we're joking around too much.
Yeah, probably.
Stop it.
Yes.
Stop it, you guys.
Especially at my expense.
Oh, sorry. But you said the lasagna thing off the top.
Mm-hmm. Lasagna's good.
Who knew? It's not. It's actually a legume. Lasagna, not a pasta. That's the name of Meach's autobiography.
You know,
Lasagna, not a pasta.
I was thinking, like, if anything, if this pre-signing stuff, it shouldn't even. It should be banned, like in
I don't know
counties or in districts and stuff like that.
I have a feeling that it's left over. I don't know if it started during COVID.
Yeah.
Lasagna?
Oh, Meach.
It definitely
number 8
who knows?
in our hearts.
We don't know how long it's been around for. It's possible it's been around for a long time.
But I feel like in my family life experience, coaching in the club world, being in the club world, I feel like it came along in COVID as a way for, like, because they couldn't have tryouts and the season sort of ended.
That's
so they were like,
shiesty, man. Like,
but
it's not even that clever.
It just reeks of non-competitive. Hold on to what you can. Actually, it was pre-COVID actually, because I remember a high up person in the volleyball world telling me that their child was sort of paid the price for not taking an offer.
Pre-signing. Yeah. Of course they're gonna.
And then they came back to tryouts, and the attitude was like, "Well, you didn't take our offer."
Yeah, built a penalty into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only thing that I think that should be happening is the player might have, once the season's over, they might have some confidence to be like, not knowing, but like feeling confident that they'll make the team next year if they decide to play on it, or if they decide to go to the tryout, right? Like, that's something I can see happening. And if anything, it's a pleasant surprise when they show up to tryouts and then they see some of their kids who are, playing just as good or better than them. And then it reignites that, re-competition. But also for that player, you see all the other coaches that of the other teams that you're playing against all the time, right? So if you see a good coach, that would be something that I think would draw me to go try out for another team,
what I was just gonna say.
Again, I lived a pretty good club life, so I never considered changing clubs.
Yeah.
It was never even a thought. And I'm trying to ask myself, like, why did I never? It was just like, I knew it. My parents knew it. We were just happy there because I was growing, right? So I'm trying to think of what would it take for me to switch. Mm-hmm. And it would have been a good coach, right?
Yeah. And I think the big thing is, like, so again, it's all ties into a lot of things. Like, I don't blame players for jumping to different teams because I think there's just a toxic, sometimes your kid's not playing enough and it's justified. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, but personally, like what we talked about in the first episode, I think the problem is these coaches that are trying to win gold medals. So they might bench a kid way more than they should because you should be trying to develop all the players, right? Mm-hmm. And that's talk about retention of players. If you set up the system where some players are never playing, then that kid's going to probably want to leave the club and everybody's going to blame the parent and blame the kid for being toxic when really, if the coach is doing their job, that kid shouldn't feel that way. Like even when I was coaching you, I know you don't remember the year very well, but I had a couple of parents ask me about playing time, and I was a young, stupid coach myself at the time, and I probably didn't play the kid as much as I should have, or I would today. I don't think so though. I think I still got him on, but she wanted him to play more, and they were talking about quitting the club, and I said, well, listen, I mean, he's the youngest kid on the team. He was younger, and there is some real value here in practicing with this group. And
your practices are still great.
Yeah, and I don't know where his, where he's going to, you don't know, in 2 or 3 months, he could be one of our starters. Because I guess he wasn't happy with him getting into the game late, like we talked about in blowouts and, second sets and maybe not third sets. And I wanted them to stick with it because he was a good player and he was going to get better. And I said, I just don't want him to set him up for failure either against really strong players because that can ruin a kid.
Yeah.
I think they ended up ultimately leaving the team, but I was like, oh, too bad because he could have been something by the end of the year. Right? But again, so just to go on, there's a lot of good reasons. I still think that if clubs take the approach and coaches take the approach that I'm going to be ultra focused, look at the best corporations, best businesses, right? What are they? They're so obsessed. Even with us starting up with this stuff, we're trying to be really focused on what people need, customers need, or parents and players and coaches need, right? That's our obsession. And if we're doing something that doesn't fit in with that need, then we're kind of, got to rethink what we're doing.
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? So coaches also need to obsess over what their player needs to get better in life, in sport. And if you do that, I'm sorry, I think very few players will leave you. And we know this because we've done it in our private sector gig here, like with our business, our other, instructional stuff that we do. They keep coming back because it's offering something, it's fair, it's inclusive, and they all are getting better from it. So that's what I think that clubs aren't understanding. And I hope parents, you can start to look for that stuff in practices and tryouts. Like, is that coach inclusive? Are they working on development? One other thing that maybe we should talk about is we talked about too much sitting. What about impressive tech? A lot of club teams like to use tech in practices, machinery. They like. I've seen teams pull this out at practices and or at tryouts. Sorry.
Okay, you can't. It's not the tech. Again, it's just how it's used. But in the case of this 60-player tryout,
well, I mean, it could be anywhere.
Right.
Let's just imagine
let
me
me just rip on the serving machine, right?
Yes.
In the case of 60, what's the point of using a serving machine if you have way too many kids on the court?
Or what if it's just 12 kids?
Well, then, yeah, all right, fair enough, true enough.
Why? Especially in a tryout situation.
Why deny them?
You want to see you want to see these kids serve in a tryout.
Yeah. Well, what is a serving machine good for, though?
Yeah, so a serving machine is personally, I don't like them, and I would discourage organizations from using tech machines personally.
Serving machines are definitely good for developing passing because you can.
Well, here's why I would say they're not, in my opinion, because volleyball serving is by definition random and uncontrollable, and every serve is different, right? And a serving machine is, one, it's robbing players of reps. I don't care how good you are. Every player needs serving reps. So it's robbing the player of reps. And two, it's putting in I've seen players serve receive with the passing machine, and they're just trying to find the sweet spot of where that serve's coming in until the coach adjusts it.
Yeah.
And
you can set them up to hit slightly randomly, though.
Yeah, you can, but it's still not coming. So let me tell you what, there's so many things that players don't even know they're doing. When you're watching a server, you know what I'm saying? You're looking at their shoulder, you're looking at their hand, you're looking at the distance from the player that the ball is. You're looking at so many things. And out of a machine, you can take a great passer and put them in front of a passing machine, and they won't be able to pass it because it'll shoot at their head.
I still think there's some benefit to them, especially if you're just trying to get a lot of reps at like a really heavy spin serve. And it's pretty much specifically just for a heavy spin serve because how difficult?
Nope, disagree.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I'm telling you, because again, I always just as a philosophy guy too, people have no idea how much the human brain is working, right? So when a player goes up for a heavy spin serve at me or at our team, there are so many things that your brain is doing that you're not even aware of. And a serving machine doesn't do it. So let me put it this way. So let's suppose we're working on spin serves. Okay?
I've never really used a serving machine, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, I like it, though, because you're playing devil's advocate. And that's
is there a spin serve
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
yeah.
about.
You can have a spin serve. You can have it at different settings. You can have the ball float out. You can have it spin out. But the problem is 90% of serve receiving is reading the hitter.
Yes.
It's not just the ball. It's all reading the toss. So like if I see you go up for a spin serve, Eric, and I see, oh my God, that ball's way in front of him. He's flying. Yeah, I know I'm not trying to.
Right.
I know you're doing a good job because it pushes my thinking and everything too. It helps me gather my thoughts. No, but you. So not only are you robbing your teammates of the opportunity to do the spin serve or hard serve practice, right? That's the big thing. Add up to all those reps that you're using the machine coaches, right? Middle schools are using this stuff.
They rip the shit out of balls too.
Yeah, they just damn it. Well, yeah, forget about that. But I mean, you're robbing the players of reps of.
And you're robbing yourself of those little mental visual cues.
Yeah, those little things. There's so many things. Like if you pause a server in the air and you have your team look at them and break down the body parts and say, what's the shoulder doing? What's the hand doing? Is the ball vertical over the player's head or is it far in front of them? This is a driven ball. This is not a driven ball, right? It's just so many little things, right? Oh, you can see their shoulders starting to swing out wide, their whole body position. That is what the essence of serve receive is and passing is. So the minute you throw a machine in the mix, you are literally robbing your players of every opportunity to read. So that's a huge. I just wish I wish coaches would understand it, and even young players would understand that how much they're doing based on reading is being lost with the machine. And the problem is once you invest, oh my God, once you invest in that, that's why I was telling you that tryout with 60 players on 2 courts, they brought out the serving machine to show the parents that they have this fancy equipment. And they'll never stop using it because they spent the however many grand it cost to use that. So, tech machine. Again, every automatic setter, there are automatic blockers that you've seen around now. Get the players to do it because the randomness of volleyball is vital. I wonder
if I'm liking the idea of it now because I'm not on any team, so I'm not in practice anymore.
Yeah, you just want one in your backyard.
No, but I'm just thinking of the benefit of being able to practice, being able to take energy off the ball. I'm imagining the contact on the platform, depending on how hard it's hit, how hard or soft, being able to take energy off the ball or put it in to get it to the height of that jump set, right? So that is what I think there's benefit in that, because it's just you're going to get dialed in just by getting a bunch of those reps, and then maybe you mix in the actual serve with another passer, and then you can identify lanes and stuff.
That's right.
I can't help but think there's some benefit in doing that. Again, don't rely on it entirely, but if it's mixed in a little bit. But don't make the mistake if you bought the tech, then just rely on this because every
time the machine fires up though, then you're just delaying the time from which your team can actually serve like that.
I know.
You're robbing them
but
of every rep.
If some players need specific help on controlling the depth of the pass of a spin serve, right? A way to really do it time effective wise, because it's difficult for a server to nail that spin serve every time to that one position. Yet a serving machine can do that, right? So you're
if it's just not focusing on reading, but just the actual act of passing in that spot.
Yeah. Exactly. Not obviously not a read. You can't read the machine, but you're gonna get that same hard driven ball, and you're gonna get 10 minutes of it or something. You're gonna get a whole bunch of the same repetitive reps all at the same time. I mean, tennis machine, I can't help but think that pros or kids coming up probably play with a tennis machine.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, just because you got to work on that one. It's a little different because that's the swing.
Yes, that is different.
That's
tennis,
they
definitely rely on serving machines more because I think it's much more volume because tennis is just the racket. Volleyball is 3 different platforms. Well, 4 if you think of a block, right? Or more than that because pancake, whatever, dig off your chest. There's so many different ways to contact the ball, right?
And I think the ball's so much slower in volleyball and bigger that there's a lot more information coming off of a person. Yeah. Like a tennis player can hide what they're doing
and
much better.
Tennis is an individual sport, so you can literally practice just with a machine.
But I guess, so I see what you're saying from sure, but I'm just saying that in a team setting, the machine is robbing
I agree.
the opportunity of the server
Yes.
and the passer to
Yes.
see those intangible things. And let's not forget to just to, because I think there's a reason why they exist, and I can see what you're saying too about repetitive thing. But if we go back to the show's title of tryouts,
Right.
because the idea
Tryouts, I would say, never has a reason that should be done. That repetition
I
is
agree with
is for when the team is built.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
But for a
I agree
tryout,
on that. I agree.
you need
yes.
to have
100%.
everybody showing off their serve.
Yes.
You need
Yes.
everybody showing off their set.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, even like I'll see coaches like rather than doing serving, they'll have like players tossing it in or like, and I'm like, why are you doing it? Why wouldn't you want to see what they can do, even from an overhand hit over the net if you want.
Yeah.
I think we can agree that the tryout thing, that's sort of what it was written
No
for
need.
too.
Reserve
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there's no other tech we can think of.
Yeah, there are some setting machines. There are some the passing machine. There are some things that will shoot out a pass to a setter. There are some targets where you're not you're shooting out the ball to the outside hitters.
Right.
Yeah, not common, but expensive programs have them, and they do exist. And some coaches do rely on them, and they show up in tryouts. I think is the big problem. We can all agree that tryout tech not a good move. And again, I think a lot of coaches are tempted to use it to show off what their club has compared to other clubs. And it's like, again, it shows a inward focus on them. It shows a focus on the club, not a care for the player at all, right? And it's like all the big shiny show. And so, not a good look. I think we're done with that.
I think so.
Yeah. As long as Erik doesn't have anything to say. No, just kidding.
But if he does,
Yes. Now I've just to see my insecurity just came out there. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, everybody at home. I'm sorry, everybody not watching.
we're here to support. Don't worry.
Sorry, everybody on cyberspace.
Yeah, like that serving machine. I think we on one team I was on, we even had practices where a libero and a setter would go into a separate gym, right? And now that's what they were doing because I was as a libero. The libero was just getting bombed serves at him, and then the setter could just get a ton of reps, right?
Okay, from the serving machine.
Yeah, well, no, from the libero passing
off
the
of
serving machine.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I said.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
I was just filling in some time while you.
So
were,
rather than
looking
having
at
you
this
guys
there.
work on your serves at the libero, they went into a special room.
No, we also did that as well.
You went into the special room?
No.
What does it mean? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm saying we had sometimes two gyms going on.
Okay.
Where it would just be setter and a few middles would go.
Okay.
Right. Or like all the middles, and then it would be a setter and a libero and the middles. Right. And then we would have full team practices. Yeah.
Specialty.
I think it was only done for like a half the practice at most.
Okay.
And
Work
then
on
it'd be
specialized
team
stuff. Was there a different coach there working with them?
It would have been the assistant coach with him.
Okay.
Or the main. I think it was usually the assistant coach doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you're working on it, you need to focus on something for sure.
Yeah. Or if there was a reason that they wanted to do drills only with the outside hitters and they didn't want to have the libero and then setter being inactive.
Gotcha.
I think they would take that as
right. Rather than incorporating them into the
be-
drill somehow. That was interesting.
Well, again, maybe there's something that if
They wanted
just
to
do
focus on
just
predictability.
specific-
It's tricky though, because I've moved away from that. Like I know that I think a lot of coaches is sort of a more recent thought in volleyball is that you want to move away from these isolated exercises.
Right.
The more multi-skilled drills you have in a practice, this is a very important thing too for parents to realize that this is the cutting edge of high-level volleyball. That you want to move away from isolated skill drills. You want to have multi-skill drills to replicate as much gameplay as possible, so that the days of isolate, and it was like even like because Erik went back to play. Erik played. We should say this too, that Erik played for a few different varsity programs. So if you're talking about one varsity program, we don't want them to think that that's the one you mean all the time. But
right. One bad one would decent one, good one. I'd say
one
good,
great,
bad.
one good experience, and
Yeah.
one experience that was something that you wish went a little differently. We would say that
Yeah.
sounds very political.
Yeah.
And so the idea of multi-skill drills is the way to go. That's sort of the and you take the shanks and you take the bad set and you take because that's more like real volleyball. So the more opportunities you have to replicate real volleyball, the better for the player. Do we all agree on that?
Yeah.
So we all agree that serving machines suck.
Yes.
Yes. Good. Eric. Eric. Yes. Eric. Yes.
Is my mic?
Yes.
muted?
I'm gonna edit it a yes. I sure do, Zuby. You're the best. I love your hair. Thank you, Eric. That's so nice of you.
He's seriously gonna do this.
Seriously gonna do what? Oh, wait a minute. I'm getting mixed up.
For practice.
For
Tryouts.
For tryouts and practice, right?
Not
Okay. For practicing tryouts.
But I mean,
Zuby's not budging on this.
No. Yes. I mean, it's not my theory. It's just Karch Karai's
No, it's
theory.
a good. It's a good theory. It is a good
true.
theory.
It is true. He does. He does say
do not
that.
have a strong enough counter. I was just trying to.
No. I think
try
it's
to-
good. I think it's
I do
good.
try to play devil's advocate and try to see what is going on through that coach's mind.
No, I think it is good. It's like every genius needs to be challenged, and so
Right.
I just think that it's good that you challenge me, even if you're wrong.
right.
Just kidding.
Somebody get
just
this guy a
kidding.
lasagna.
Just kidding.
He's burning up so much brain power right now.
Just kidding.
Can't keep up.
I have enough brain power that if harnessed, I could toast bread with my mind. Gently.
Men who stare at goats.
Yes. Okay, what about this, guys? What about intentional sabotage of rival clubs? Thoughts? Like, what I mean by that is, like, I've seen clubs that intentionally, so they'll have their posted tryouts, and then they'll state in person that there's a special mandatory third tryout, for example, on the same date that a nearby rival club has their second tryout. So in other words, they're doing this.
I think we can all agree on this one.
Yeah. What about what, Eric? What are we gonna say?
It's shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it show? What does it tell you?
It shows lack of confidence that that team feels that they can play on a fair level.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Trickery.
That and they don't feel confident in their own quality of player development, right? That they have to play tricks like this.
Yeah, I remember I saw it happen, and I heard parents tell us about it, and all the parents had a very negative feeling about it.
Yeah.
And some of them decided that they didn't want to play with the club for that reason.
Yeah.
And they went to the other tryout as a statement. So parents, red flag there. If a coach or a club is trying to intentionally, a lot of areas have 2 or 3 rival clubs. And if there's something, especially this one, because this example was like on the website, it looked like they were being respectful of the other club, but then there was a stated off the record mandatory practice. It was just snaky behavior, and everybody saw right through it. And hopefully people do. Right?
How do they not realize that everyone is going to feel that way? Like,
they think they're being clever, right? It's like everybody who's a shyster, right? Anybody who's
Right.
sneaky, they think they're being clever, but
it's good they broadcast it so early in a way, I guess.
yeah, that's the benefit. But for every parent that didn't go, I'm sure other parents panicked and went. But that is your red flag. That is your red flag. That yeah. Okay, well that's another one. That was a quick one. Good thing I didn't mention serving machine. No, I'm just kidding. For those of you, Erik has a serving machine in his bedroom. We should tell them.
Yeah. No, I don't. I wish.
You load it with melon.
I'm probably going to get a tennis machine, though.
Yeah?
You say a serving machine with melon.
I don't know why. But anyway, tennis machine would be fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Erik and I are switching over to tennis because...
Not switching.
Well, not switching, but just...
It's awesome.
Yeah.
We got into it, and it's a pretty good sport.
I found out like I'm amazing at it.
Oh, yeah?
How
Well,
long
what do we
ago
know
was that?
yet? You've seen it too. Remember?
I haven't played you this summer yet.
That's true. I've been hiding. I'm training in secret.
I heard you switched to men's doubles because it's easier.
I had a men's doubles experience. This sounds I'm very open. No. This sounds. This is going. No. So we were playing men's singles, and some other people showed up and said, "Hey, do you mind if we play doubles?" And I hesitated. But I said yes because I'm open to new things, and it was fun. Yeah, doubles was fun. And I didn't think I'd like doubles. I don't like this conversation. It's a volleyball show, I mean.
We definitely have to get that filmed whenever you guys go.
I'm
at
very
it.
good at tennis. What?
Zuby always plays at the back.
The
though.
world will know.
If I was, 40 years younger, I would be.
Amazing.
I always said that volleyball and tennis are so similar though because it has a net, really cool shoes, and balls. Meach, it has balls,
Ooh.
And he sweats when he plays it. That's why they're similar.
and I sweat. Yes, but no, I think it's very similar. Tennis and volleyball, I think, kind of ready position is there, right, and reading things off the serve, split hopping.
A lot of similarities.
Yeah, there's even an overhead smash. That if I found volleyball players who play tennis sometimes smash it into the net because they snap their wrist too much.
You think the spike and the serve are the same, but I've been starting to notice
because the length of the racket means you can't snap your
that,
wrist.
and there's a lot more rotational torque going on in the tennis serve.
Yeah,
Big
100%. Yeah, for some players do less. Some players
Most
do
of
more.
them start totally sideways.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
rotate into it.
Although
there's a lot of rotation in the spike as well. It's just not as much.
Yeah, and the anyway, we should stop talking about this.
Probably.
Especially since we're not anywhere experts on
Yes,
tennis.
that is.
I have been watching tennis though my whole life. In fairness, I have watched it. I played it several times in my life,
And he keeps coming back to tennis.
And I keep coming back to tennis. Yeah, I think it's my calling. I think it's why I'm here.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, we talked about. Okay, what about this? What about if you hear your coach or at practice parents, if you hear them talking negatively about another club or about past players, what does that say, Meach?
Not good.
That is correct.
This is starting to feel like trivia now.
It's a game show.
Yeah, I mean, what are your instincts going to tell you if you start to hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's.
But you should leave, right? That's we know it's bad, but parents don't drop the club immediately when they have a choice. Like in places where there are choices, shouldn't you just bail right there?
Yeah, because.
Are we talking? Is that too simple? Is it more complicated than this? Like if there's multiple choices, I guess it could be the least. Like what if it's the best of all the crap?
Just the parents talking. You hear parents talking negatively about other kids.
Or no, sorry. If you hear the coach talking negatively about past players or people who left the club or about the other rival club in town.
Yeah, that seems pretty red flag to me.
Yeah. But some parents are on board with that stuff. Don't forget. Some parents.
Well, there's the insecurity thing coming back, right? It's like, hey, let's beat up together on these other people and feel better about ourselves.
The in-group, out-group thing
Yeah.
we talked about. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Good
It's
point.
like, oh, well, we're still here.
But it is something parents should watch for and listen for. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
On that.
Right on.
There's probably.
Sorry,
too
what was
much
that,
of it.
Meach? What was that?
Right on.
Oh, right.
Is that right on?
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Right on. There's that sexy voice again.
Don't fault me.
Damn. Okay, what else was on my list
What
here?
else you got, sir?
I got.
What do you got for us?
What about
What's
if the
next on the
coach?
trivia?
Okay, is this a red flag? This is a good one. What if the coach's resume doesn't include any high-level playing?
What do you mean? Their resume?
So, like, on the website where they do the
Oh.
write-up of this coach has been coaching club volleyball for the past 6 years and loves the sport, but there's no mention of high-level playing. Even I would put club playing in there, recent club playing, and I would put, obviously, varsity in there.
I don't know, Meach. I think yellow flag.
I would say definitely depends on what you want to have. If it's a club, say for a setting, for example, if that is all you can get, but he's gung ho towards the game,
Or she, Amici.
or she, that's
Yeah.
right.
It's
It could be
It's 2022, by the way.
yes, 2022.
Sorry, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
But I mean, you're going to have different organizations. You shouldn't. When it comes to a club setting, you get what you get. If someone can hire a high level coach and promote those kind of players, then you do it.
Right.
If it's someone to just be able to give instruction, give motivation to to the players, then I say go for it as well. I mean, we've seen success on our own standards just from having a football coach that liked the game and was willing to dedicate that time, because that's really where it comes into dedicating time.
We just discussed a bunch of qualities non-related to being skilled at the game that a good coach could have, right? You know, showing respect to other players, energy, showing their players how to be leaders on the court. So, yeah, I agree with what Meach is saying here, right? Especially like you're saying that maybe they weren't able to get the high level coach, but they got this individual who maybe they show a lot of motivation and stuff. So again, for me, it's be aware of it for sure. A little bit of a yellow flag, but it's not the end of the road. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I agree with Meach too. That a club situation is very tricky to get those good those high level players. And again, we know that high level players aren't always good coaches.
Yeah.
But like we said with what the difference between that coach who never played at a high level and the one that maybe did play at a high level but isn't a great coach is the willingness to learn. Right. If you are a player if you are a person who never played volleyball at a high level, but you're willing to do the digging, the looking up, the asking questions of players who are maybe people who know more, who've been at higher levels than you can become a great coach through that curiosity and watching and seeing what happens when a player is not in the right spot, seeing what happens when, a coach shows belief in a player. Sometimes there can be an elitist thing. I personally think that it's very difficult to be a super high level coach without ever having played the game, like at the highest national team levels and even varsity level. You better have some experience playing, but you can be a great teacher of the game if you are a great student of the game. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it, really, right?
Especially when coaches are willing to take on help in their coaching. We see this all the time in having a serving coach, having a passing coach. The more that coaches can incur taking on others to assist them, all the better for the players as well.
And that's the humility we talked about, right? Because willingness to learn ultimately is humility, and that means that you're not afraid to have in people with different voices.
Yes. It means you're secure, not insecure.
Yeah, because we've gone into gyms. We've been invited in by club coaches, and they seem to be on board with some things, but sometimes you realize that the longer they've been with the team, the more scared they get when they hear you talking about something that doesn't match up with what they've taught, and they become resistant. They don't want you back because now the players hear a different point of view that doesn't really jive with what they've been saying. So humility, confidence, right? You can have confidence, and like genuine confidence means you have humility, I think, right? We talked about that before.
And still be willing to listen.
Yeah, still be willing to listen and even say, hey guys, I know I said this, but here's someone who's done more and said more. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like even us having that discussion about the serving machine, right? Like you were very humble in that loss,
I can't believe you just did this.
At least he was kind enough to wait for the laugh, because
I'll edit out the laughter later. I'll just piece together Erik's sentences in this editing, and it'll say, "Thank you, Zuby. You are so smart and wise." Sorry. You were saying something about.
Now you just kicked that right out of his head.
No, I what that shows is because we all truly know that we all don't know everything. I think every individual on some level, whether they admit it to others or not, admit it to themselves that we don't know everything. So if you seeing that in an individual such as your coach just shows, this is a normal thinking person, right? They're not bound by these irrational blah, 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 or these insecurities. So you see that in someone, they are now more likable, that coach.
Yes, 100%. Is there something, I always do wonder about this. Do you guys have any rules for who you do listen to when it comes to things? Like any personal rules? I have a philosophy on
like if you have
who I choose to listen, to whom I choose to listen.
Are you talking about more than just volleyball?
In life, yes.
You're talking about.
Yeah, seriously, because I think the same. Like, see, I always think in principles. I think about. That's why, like, volleyballology is like rooted in logic. I think in my philosophy background, I always try to think about like what's a good. If it's good in one instance, it's good for all instances. I think. So, who would you listen to in life? I think this is sort of
someone
volleyball.
Someone who has done it, whatever it is I'm looking up to, and then maybe how many people have done it, right? Like if it's I was thinking of a few weightlifting things here, but the whole philosophy, calories in, calories out, right?
Okay.
That's what bodybuilders use. They all, I think so. Anyways, I'm not a bodybuilder, but I've looked at it a little bit.
Did you say you aren't a bodybuilder?
I'm not. I think it's pretty obvious.
No.
I think like the majority of them agree that it's based on calories in, calories out, right? I remember there was one time when I was looking into nutrition and they were talking about different types of calories versus others and how that plays a role. I thought there was some interesting stuff going on there. I got a little bit into it. But then it seems that at the end of the day, it's calories in, calories out. So that's something I can like put to rest in my mind, right?
Yeah, and you do that because you listen to the people who have done it the most and had the most success.
Yes.
And that's a pretty interesting thing. And that's because I think people, like I've heard coaches talk about this where they're like, oh, there's different ways to do things. And they try to frame it as being open or this is why my bad advice might still work or, but there are fundamentals of people who have done it at the highest level who are telling you that that's not the way to do it and you're still going. So, and they try to frame it in the whole popular culture notion of, oh, but we should be open. And like you were saying, like, know what we don't know. And, we don't really know. But there are things that people who have succeeded, that's how you know whether or not you're listening to someone that is worthwhile. If someone who has done less than you is giving you advice on something, you probably should nod and smile and go, oh, I never thought of that. I'll take that into consideration. But if someone has done more than you in something, then you should probably listen up, right, to their perspective. They still could be wrong. They still could be wrong in this one instance. But they're more likely to be someone that you should follow. Like it's like, it's like going, I don't want to demean anything, but, imagine going into some scenario where, the ice cream salesman is giving you stock advice and you're like, oh, and not to say, hey, the ice cream sales guy, you never know if he owns the business and it could be like, I'm not demeaning ice cream salespeople, but you'd have to ask, do you invest in things or do you something like that. So, it's like us giving tennis advice to, Rafael Nadal. I know you've been playing a while, but have you ever thought of using your backhand a little more? Have you ever tried a one-handed backhand to Rafael Nadal? Because, man, that Roger Federer, he's really good with that one-hand backhand. I watch a lot of tennis, Rafael. I think you should try.
While he does it, too. So.
Yeah. What?
Just to make Nadal look even better?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't talking about how they looked, Erik. Sorry. But anyway.
Because he looks so graceful.
Yeah. Oh, Federer's one-handed backhand is terrifying and graceful all at once. Yes. But so if I'm giving him advice, Rafael Nadal should look at me and say, in Spanish, cállate. That's Spanish for shut up. See, educational and fun. That's me. Yeah, so I do like to frame that, though, because I think people get trapped in we should listen to all points of view, and that sounds very nice, but there are qualified points of view and points of view that can be backed up with evidence and points of view that can't. When I was teaching, I used to tell kids, whether it was a history class, English class, there are wrong theories. People, this whole myth that there are no wrong theories is not true. The theories that you can't support with evidence are wrong. I'm sorry. Evidence is... and especially in sports, right? This works or it won't. Here's why. That goes back to the why question we asked in episode 1.
Many theories are held to be true until they're de-theorized or a more correct one comes into place.
Yeah,
anyways.
And they better adapt the theory when new evidence comes in. Or then you've crossed into dogma like we talked about in the first episode where you're not willing to change when new evidence is presented or better evidence. Then what are you doing? You're now just clinging blindly to an idea? Yes, the opposite of learning. But I digress.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of one of your other points of when you have a good player and you have a more outstanding player. in practice, or I guess you could see this in tryouts, right, where they're doing great and other players are saying not doing as well on that certain skill, and then the coach gives feedback to that player doing a good job or doing that skill well, better than the others, and now they're giving feedback. So sorry,
Okay.
that's
No,
what,
yeah,
were you leading at? Because that
well,
just made me think of
yeah,
it.
no, that's probably where we're going. Eric's now confusing pre-show talk with show talk,
Yes.
and as acting like you all know what he's talking about. So no,
Well,
you just ruined the show.
Why don't you explain it a little
Okay,
bit
sure.
better?
I'll explain. So one thing I know. Well, I'm glad you asked, Eric. I'm a little hesitant, as everybody knows, to talk on the microphone, but I'll do it. I'll try it. So one thing I noticed in tryouts that is a red flag, even darker than a red flag, a black flag,
Right.
is that when a coach, I've noticed a level of insecurity in coaches where they will often take the best player in a tryout scenario, take them aside and give them a little negative feedback, telling them what they're doing wrong. When the rest of the gym is stumbling around, tripping all over themselves, but they intentionally take the best player, and not with the mindset of, hey, you're really good, I think I can help make you better. It's to nitpick something wrong. And I think that this is a red flag for parents to watch for, because if they see a player, whether it's their child or not, that is getting criticized by the coach, it's almost like that coach is trying to prove to the parent or to the player that they still have something to teach them.
It's 100% what it is.
Yeah, it's 100%. It's an insecure coach who's like, oh, I know you're really good, but here's something that I noticed that you're doing wrong. Not constructive feedback here. That's totally different. This is like centering out one player who's strong. I've seen it a few times with different kids, and it's a real thing to look for, is if a coach is trying to nitpick on the strongest player.
Right.
Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Experienced it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly at like lower club level and stuff, or just, have I done it myself? I hope not, but
I don't think you would. No.
I've definitely seen it.
I know you very well, Eric. I don't think we would, because again, we're not in a situation to try to prove ourselves to players. Like if we take a player aside to work on something, it's always with the mindset of making them better, and not to prove to them that we know more than them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about when you see that coach. Meach, you ever see anything like that or experience anything like that in your days as a player, or do you remember any coaches that, maybe not, I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yeah, I mean, not too much. I've always felt that there's a time when you're in a tryout to let the kids play. They're there for competition. They're there for a reason. They're there to try and make themselves as somebody that you want to take. So when that is finished, if you should select that player, that's the time that they should do it.
very good point. Yes.
Not during the tryout.
It's very weird to do it in a tryout too, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's almost like you want to see what they can do.
Yeah.
So there's only one reason to do that. If the coach is doing it with everybody, then that's okay. They can waste their time if they want to.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Even weirder in a tryout.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not like, say for example, if the player is going to be on that team, then you can start the coaching whenever you want. But if it's a tryout situation, unless you've said, you know what, you're going to be the team, so just let me show you that.
Yeah.
Save it for
This is like an
practice.
I guess we're also talking to. We should clarify, like if it's a player they've never seen before,
Yeah.
right, and they've shown up in
Yeah.
their dynamo,
Yeah.
and then to just take them aside and say, again, not like, hey, let's, I notice you're dropping your arm, or oh, you might want to do this because I think you're really looking good out there, but if it's just like a negative, like, oh, you got to do it like this, and then they're off to the side coaching the strongest player out there on their footwork.
Kids are just running around.
Yeah, well, the other kids are much lower level. That's a weird little red flag that I've noticed that not a lot of parents might think about when they.
If the coach, whoever, or if the player wants to ask you something because of your knowledge, hey, no problem. Oh, okay. Well, just to give you a little idea, this is how you could do it as a suggestion, but not
But even in tryout, that would be weird, right? For a player to ask. Like, I would answer if a player came to me asking, I'd say, well, you know what? You do it the way you do it. It's a tryout, right? So I want you to do it because I got to watch. My job is to watch.
Right.
That's
They have a very small amount of time.
Yes, a very short time to see how good that player is. So if you're stopping to give advice on the sideline, it's kind of weird.
I think if you're saying to a player as a helpful tip, they come to you.
Yes.
I don't think you
yeah,
should
that's
deny.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, helpful quick tip. You mean. Yeah.
Helpful
Not
quick
like
tip.
off to the side.
Yeah.
That's something that's not on the list, but I think I've seen in the past too, where it doesn't even feel like the coaches are watching the tryout. Have you ever seen that before? Like, I've seen this before, where they're not even looking. Like, they're not.
I
even
know what you're
watching.
talking about.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They're in the gym, and it doesn't even feel like they're watching the tryouts.
Yeah.
Or, like, it doesn't matter what a kid does. They've in their mind they've got the team picked, and they're
giving off that allure, like they're just. Yeah, they're trying to look confident and stuff. Like, oh, everything's working well. This thing I got set up, the thing's working. The kids are doing their thing. It's all, don't worry. Like, and then because they're probably, are they aware? Like in this situation, are they aware? You know that they're aware of the audience, like the parents and stuff around.
Yes, yeah, you were saying that in another episode. Yeah, the good coach, bad coach, coach that's overly aware of the parents.
Well, then if we were even talking about then in like practice situation and stuff, they're already in rhythm. They're already in their bad rhythm of all right. Yeah, not a good thing if they're doing that. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of parents out there can relate, where they feel like the coach isn't noticing anything the kids are doing. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I know that they'll have some type of feeling that you should only be on my kid, but
yes, that's the thing. Yeah, maybe
Right.
parents think their kids are but I'm almost always talking about the coach that, like Eric's sort of hinting at. They're more concerned about what they're doing, how they're appearing, how the practice appears, the club appears, and almost like it feels like the tryout is a charade, like, or is like it's not needed, or they write off kids very early. It's very weird sometimes. I've seen other kids sometimes get overlooked for teams, like not my kids but other kids, and I'm shocked that they weren't picked. Or you find out like the best hitter. We'll do an episode on this later. Like there's I saw a girl who was the best hitter of an age group, but she was short, so they made her libero. By far the best hitter on that team. They made her libero
because they didn't get to see it.
No, they saw it. It's just wrapped up and trapped by that tall short mentality of like the short player can't.
Early misconceptions.
Well, that's sort of, Meach, like, since we played, it's changed now. It's like there are teams that will just be selected, and we'll do a whole show on this, and this might be a red flag for parents that we should talk about too. If the team is not picking the best players, but picking height, that's a red flag too, because that means that coach doesn't think, the line that coaches give you is you can't teach tall, but can you teach players to block? If the answer is no, then you might take tall. Can you teach players a proper spike approach? Because if you can't, then you might just take tall.
Yeah.
Without knowing what tall can mean, like blanket tall. Like, they can all be tall if they're the best players, by all means. But I think we're seeing internationally what happens when teams go just tall.
So that's a very good philosophy. If you can't possibly teach it, then go towards what you can't teach. And that's saying something about the coach.
That's a
more
red
than
flag.
anything.
Yeah. These blanket rule. That's what I'm saying about that libero player. Like, so you have a blanket rule in your head, and there's no exception. So, like I said, this girl was a dynamite hitter, best hitter in the gym. Libero. Makes no sense, right? But that's the types of policies that these. Again, I think the more likely you are to cling blindly to a rule, I think that says a lot about your ability to think and evaluate what you're doing, right? Like, I think we set up systems so people think less, right? That's why we set up systems, to take the individual thinking out of any process, right? Like, I know as an organizational thing, I would make a system. Even in education, they would make things called rubrics, where the student could just look and say, okay, I did this level, and the teacher goes, okay, now there's no, and the whole reason behind rubrics is to take the thinking out of the teacher. So the teacher doesn't have to think, the kid doesn't have to think. Here it is.
Well, you just have to think once.
Yeah, you just have to think once or read it and meet the standard. And this is what coaches who stick to strict philosophies, like about based on height, or worse sometimes, right, than height, they are basically saying that they're not thinking anymore. Nope, I got a blanket policy, right?
Yeah. Policy.
Yeah, I think everybody in the
that
work
word.
world knows about policies, and they're blanket, and they're not thinking, and they're not adaptive. There's no room by definition. A policy is not allowing adaptation to happen. It doesn't want adaptation.
That's right.
That's a red flag that we didn't have on the list, and it'll show up. We'll do a whole show about short versus tall, that philosophy, because there's benefits to both. Actually, it is on my list. Actually, short versus tall. Yeah, it's the last one I typed in. Perfect.
For a different one,
I knew
right?
I didn't mess up. What?
For a different one?
No, for this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
it was there just as a red flag for parents to look for. If a team
Yeah.
is blanketly, whether your kid's the tall one benefiting or not, I think that should be an interesting red flag because it shows a reflection of the coach not
Being able to adapt?
not being able to adapt and maybe not knowing their stuff. Because I don't think anybody who played would really just blanket pick one over the other. You gotta take the best players. I don't know. To me, it's a no-brainer. Take the best players. Yeah. Okay, so then we're going down the list here. What about, we talked about this before, emphasis on winning over development. I don't know if we need to go over that one too much. It shows up a lot in good coach, bad coach. But if the coach is talking about medals and winning championships, that's the wrong mentality for youth age volleyball, because that means they're going to feed their ego with prizing and championships, not the kids and all 12 kids' development from the best kid to the worst kid on the team. They're going to sacrifice to win a medal, right? Erik, you want to elaborate? Or
Well, I think the kid is going to prefer the coach that when they're on their team, they have the most development. They improve the most. That's probably the one they're going to want to at least go to the first tryout the next season with them. I'm guessing anyways.
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you have experience to draw from on that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where you find that in the long run, that's where the kids really enjoy playing and will continue to play if they based on their experience of what the coach did. If they had their best mindset, if they had their future in mind, then that's where the kids really have the most enjoyable time.
Yeah, because you can feel it, right?
Yeah.
Well, and again, like the coach should be on tryout as well from the club, and then that's a quality that the club is going to want. So
Definitely.
It really trickles down through the club too. I noticed like club directors, like maybe that's something else on this list that ties in like that. Whatever the mindset of that club director really trickles down through the team.
Makes sense,
because
yeah.
who they pick is connected with them, and so it does matter sometimes who the club director is. Sometimes not. Like, sometimes coaches will go do their own thing. Club directors look away or just don't have the time to.
Don't have the time, or too absent. Yeah.
But some of them wander into the gyms and start to interfere with coaches too. I know a lot of coaches deal with that as well.
You've seen that?
Yeah, I've seen club directors walk into every practice and start to interrupt the coaches and start talking to players, and it's like, it's really bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awful. That's another red flag too if parents see it.
Yeah.
So we're getting here towards the end of the list for parent red flags, and then we'll quickly do a quick rundown of what things coaches can do. Just snap bullet points of what coaches can do to make their practices amazing or their tryouts amazing. We talked about power trippy coaches, emphasis on winning over development. Overly critical, strongest player, coach to buddy with returning players, short versus tall. Yeah, I think that's good. Just going to look at our tryout issues. We talked about that. So for coaches, what are some things quick, if you want to do like bullet points, guys, what are some things that coaches can do to make a practice great? One thing, Meach, go.
I would say to mix players, different levels, skill levels. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can always get that benefits of King's Court, Queen's Court, whatever it is, by making sure that everybody gets involved at different levels.
I'm glad you included Queen's Court in there, Meach, for once, you sexist pig.
Yes.
What's the benefit of that, Meach?
The benefit is that leaders become, better at what they do, and every player can get stronger. Whether it be just a skill level or whether it be a leadership level, all of that can be developed through that.
But in the tryout scenario, again, not quite getting to development yet, you get to see, maybe those 4 players good players work really well together, but then now have that setter with not so good a pass, and then see if they can still dish it in the same quality, right? Or whatever, or spiker with a not as good setter, and stuff like that. So but you start to see who the leaders are amongst those players that can kind of bring up the level of play of the other players.
And if I may too, also who can adapt to any kind of player. Whether you be
big leadership quality,
whether you be starting with let's say like if a weaker player can see how they can adapt to the bigger ones that are intimidating.
Right.
If it's the other way around, then you can say, hey, I can play with anybody no matter what level I'm at, and bring players up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's always that, like we said, the one thing every player does have control, right, is their energy level and their hustle and their effort, regardless of their skill. So that gives them the opportunity to show it off there.
Yeah, and I think in a tryout setting, the key is that, if you're a coach that is not keeping an eye on who's playing with whom, then that is probably going to give you an unfair assessment of what each player can do. So if you are consistently seeing a hitter who's always on court with a weaker setter, you might think that the hitter is weak, but really it might be the setter that's the problem. Or if you're seeing a setter who's not getting the sets out, maybe you're not seeing who's serving to that team in that instance, or who's passing with that partner. So you have to move the play. I love it when coaches say in a tryout situation, okay, all the setters switch courts. And they rotate, and then they're going to move the liberos another direction, and then they're going to move the outside hitters, and they're going to move the middles, or they have a system whereby players are earning points in a rotation of, let's say, 3-on-3, like half split the court in half. It's 3-on-3, and then they'll let players earn points on one side. Teams with the players with the highest points move this way. Players with the lowest points move that way. Whoops.
Yeah.
And it does a lot for really assessing where players need to be. So coaches, I think the bottom line we're all saying is make sure you're mixing the players up in the tryouts, because you don't know what combinations are fair for players, right? You're not going to see which players are serving better, passing better in certain situations. So the more variance you have among the courts, the better it is for players. Erik, anything you'd like to add, or a quick bullet point for a good tryout?
Non-favoritism, and maybe in a tryout where there's a lot of players, you're going to need more assistant coaches there to you're going to need more opinion, because your eyes, it's not going to work, right?
That's great.
So, well, I just thought of when you're saying like keep mixing them up, it's going to be difficult to, there's just too many players, right? So you just need more people there.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful. And they might not even have to be super high level, but if you're a coach who's running the drill, or if you have another coach doing the drills, it's super handy to just be quiet off to the side and really focusing on watching. Because sometimes if you're the person doing the drill, you're not able to watch what's happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Non-favoritism. That's especially during the tryout.
And you can. We're all human, right? We're all gonna like people better than other people based on their demeanor and treatment of us and respect and all that. I think, but you have to force yourself into that professional mode, right? I'm not going to show anything here, and I'm going to be open in case I'm prejudging some people too, right? Like we talked about in one episode about not knowing why someone is off that day. So you have to be, I mean, it's really tricky to not be that human that judges people too quickly. But as a coach, I think there's a different level of professionalism you have to have in the gym, where you can't be walking around buddy, high-fiving, laughing while other kids are working their asses off trying to impress you. And you're sitting there joking with last year's team. I think that just reeks of insecure, weak coach looking for attention and to be part of that in-group. So coaches really have to think of themselves as professionals. Like, I know you're volunteers, you might not be super high paid, you might not be whatever, but be a professional in the gym.
And I feel if you can get, and I know this occurred a lot, if you can get more than one tryout, the better, because you never know when somebody's off day is going to be, and you could miss out on a really great player just because you only limited your choices.
Yeah, not enough tryouts for sure is a problem in sport too. in these situations. I'm just going to zip down our list. Proper results of proper sorting, wait times considered for coaches. Make sure the athletes are moving as often as possible and doing as many of the skills as possible. Randomness allowed. That's what we were talking about, mixing up the players. Calm kids down at the start. Remember, players are nervous at the start of tryouts. So, you giving a little speech on telling the kids not to worry about mistakes is a great thing I've seen coaches do in the past, and it's a very helpful thing. It also lets them know that you understand that mistakes happen, because you see kids, they'll just tighten up and they won't perform, and you're still not getting an accurate view of who that player is, right? Whereas if you can teach them at the beginning that, we're all going to mess up. I played a lot. Hit it in the net, got blocked, missed serves, so don't worry about that. We want to see you perform loose and free and enjoy this tryout. That could go a long way to unlocking who's really in that gym, right?
That's right.
Because that is the ultimate goal. I mean, it's not your job to make everybody feel amazing before a tryout, and just like school tests, part of the whole test is to succeed under pressure. But they are young; these are kids, and so some of them are still. You can teach them about pressure and how it's not the be all end all.
Right.
You were going to say something, Erik? Sorry.
No, I'm fully in agreement. That's all.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were saying nothing about serving machines or. Yeah.
Well, go back to that.
Hey, that's a comedy thing I learned. It's called a callback. So do a little research. Anyway, what else? Calm kids. We talked about this. Coaches, if you can encourage athletes to go for it, try it with no fear, please. I want to see what you have. Just saying that to a kid is pretty powerful stuff. And if coaches just say that as a philosophy, but if you say it in a tryout, can you imagine what you might see in the room? Right. Like if you tell them, listen, like I told you, I saw a coach say that, former varsity player, high level coach, coaching post-secondary, and he said this to the group, and you should have seen the volleyball that day. Yeah, it was the best volleyball I've seen. These are high school kids, and they were playing free, loose, super supportive. Nobody cared about a mistake. Super important, I think, if you can do that.
Yeah.
And organized coaches, I think a lot of coaches think that they've been doing volleyball for a long time, or they've been running practices for a long time, so they just think they'll think of it on the spot. Never hurts to write down 4 or 5 things you're going to do in the order, like just even notes. You don't have to write a huge lesson plan. A lot of players, a lot of coaches in schools they want you to do a whole lesson plan, which is great. It's fine, practice plan. But even just having an organization and a tempo thing and a feel for when something's not going right. There's that thing, coaches, remember, always look around the gym once in a while. If kids are sitting down, if kids are standing still. I know that when we're running programs or something and I see coaches like just with a bunch of kids in a huge long lineup and one athlete at a time, come on, multiple skills, multiple kids. Running around. You want them to be exhausted at the end of the tryout and smiling and happy, exhilarated, because it was a high tempo practice. That also brings out the best. If your tryouts are stagnant, you're not going to see what that kid has to offer in a real energetic situation, which is a game or a match, right?
I would say it's a great philosophy to organize first, scrimmage after. That's the part that fills in. If you don't get a lot of scrimmage, especially, if it's just a first of, 2 tryouts, but if you organize, you're looking at, okay, this should take this amount of time. If it doesn't, then the scrimmage could wane. Okay.
Yes.
But if you have it organized, then you're good no matter what.
Yeah. And there's always got to be some sort of replication of gameplay, right? Some coaches get caught up in drills the whole time and they don't see what the kid can do in a multiple game, king's court, queen's court,
right?
So at least situation, right? So
at least,
very important to see what they can do when they're playing the aces in a row, shank a ball. What do they do next?
How do they shrug it off?
Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah. And I think we're almost done. I think one last thing I want to say is that coaches, if you're setting up your practice, have a process by which. So if you have a sorting process, make sure there's something else there or someone there who can help you find someone who slipped through the cracks. I know a lot of coaches break kids up and they filter them to the right, top court, second court. Make sure that there's someone there on the weaker court in case you missed 1 or 2 players. You don't want them to, because then they lose heart and they perform worse. And you want to make sure, part of the test is to see how, some kids perform better in those situations. That's who you want. But yeah, again, these are children, so you want to make sure that you have a process through which you can catch the kids that slip through your system, because there always is one or two kids that your system for sorting has missed. So make sure you have a mechanism for that. I see a lot of kids sitting on the wrong courts in our programs, and even in camps where they sort kids into skill levels. There's always some kid who's way too good, and they might be stuck there all year if a parent doesn't speak up, right? So have a process where someone their dedicated job is to, maybe for a few minutes of that practice or tryout, I should say, see if you miss somebody, just in case, because I've seen that recently in the past few days already, where kids are on the wrong courts.
I had a particular, you remember Todd?
Let's not name names, but yeah.
Okay, it's a good thing.
Okay, it's a good thing. Okay.
He took.
Does that mean we say bad things? I guess we do.
No.
Because that's weird, because I remember Todd sucked. Oops. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Todd was great.
That's him.
We
Zub.
We love Todd.
He and I were doing a team, and I completely cut Brooke off of the team.
Now you're mentioning another name?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
No rules.
Only positive stuff.
No rules.
So, okay, but you just cut someone off the team that shouldn't have been cut. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Brooke, if you're out there, it's you. Okay. Now, however, she was one of the best players, but because I didn't have that second eye.
You were a high school kid, by the way, we should point out, right?
Yeah.
You were a senior helping coach a junior team.
That's right.
Right. So
That's
you
right.
were, yeah.
And I completely cut her off the team, not knowingly.
Mm-hmm.
But then he said, where is this girl, Brooke? I go, what do you mean? I totally missed her name from the list. So, eventually I went back and got her, made her a part of the team.
Did you know that she was a great player, but just didn't know her name or forgot to put her on the list? Or were you in tryouts and not notice how good she was?
I noticed how good she was. So that's when he mentioned her to me. I knew about it, but it just took.
It slipped through.
It slipped through.
You realized,
the list.
okay,
Yeah.
so you, in theory, if you forgot her name on the list, you would have forgotten that she wasn't on the team.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Todd.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty odd, I think. So you didn't say to yourself, hey, where's that really good player? Where's the best player in tryouts? You didn't have that thought?
Not at the time. I do. I mean, not saying she was the best, but she definitely earned her spot.
And when, Amici, did you learn that lasagna was a pasta? Was it just today? Just today?
1983.
1983.
Yes, if I have to make a specific date.
Okay, but spaghetti, to be clear, spaghetti, not a pasta.
In some cases, but I will digress.
That makes no sense. I don't think you can't just use the word digress to sound smart.
You can't. Why not?
But I regress. Anyway, I think.
But I always impress.
Yes, you did.
Pizza
You
a
do
pasta?
impress. Pizza's not a pasta.
Pizza's pizza.
Pizza is it's a vegetable. Idiot. Anyway, I think we've hit. We're over 2 hours again, so that's sort of what we tend to ramble on for every episode. By the way, people, some people who feel these are too long, and we hotly disagree with you. By the way, you
set duration.
You can, it's not TV. You can listen to it in chunks, right? You can listen to it in the shower. You can listen to it on your boat. You can listen to. I picked the two last places where anybody would listen to this. You could listen to it in the gym, in your car, and you can listen to it in snippets. You can listen to it with your kids. Actually, we hope you do listen to it with your kids, especially the kids that are not, or feel they're alone. Those kids that feel like they're not, they're getting jilted by a coach. Or they feel that it's them when they're like getting benched or something like that, or not making a team that they should make, right? Sorry, Erik, if we're keeping you awake here.
I'm sorry.
Why is it that you yawn every time I talk? Here I am pouring out my heart.
Every time you talk?
Well, almost. It feels like it sometimes.
You're just having to be looking at me.
I know. I was just being sensitive.
I'll just go over here.
So varied opportunities for success was the last thing on the list. I think we hit everything. So,
nice.
Yeah, I think that's it. 2 hours, guys. Good show. I think that was a very useful show. It's tryout week, so we're hoping that parents and players can use some of this stuff. I don't think it's late. It'll be up in the middle of tryout week, so hopefully you hear this in time and get to it. If not this year, then next year.
And you can listen anytime you want to.
Yeah, you can listen for years from now. That's why Eric's references to
That's
timely.
why you pointed out the year.
Yeah,
which
I wanted you
said
to know
things.
that, you know,
Yes.
in 100 years when people are still listening to this episode, you know, when the volleyballs are digital, they'll be sitting back and going, I wonder what he's talking about.
Or when they finally listen, when they should have listened.
Because we're ahead. Because we're living in the future, my friend.
That's right.
Join us in the future.
Do you think we'll ever get volleyballs out of like big volleyball cans, like tennis balls? You know, you just pop them.
I've often thought that.
Yeah, you know?
Never.
Fresh.
Oh.
Oh, Eric was so
mean-
hopeful there. Eric was hopeful
They would be
there.
like pre-inflated, right? They'd be fresh, ready to go.
Pre-inflated, fresh. Yeah.
Preserved volleyballs.
Don't
Preserved-
say fuzzy balls, or Meach is gonna lose it.
fuzzy preserved balls.
Let's stop recording. Stop recording.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.
Great job. We'll
Thanks,
see
everyone.
you.
Zub.
We'll see you next
Have a
week through
good
the
time.
computer screen in the future.
Sounds good.
What's the big idea?